To the songs of the Caribbean we groove. To calypso and silver.
Yes, I listen to Jam FM out of Toronto.
This jam will be Irish.
It's really gonna be Irish.
It's one love, so feel free. For we are the people of the Caribbean, showing that we don't want no basin plan.
Closing for you to Ola's Kitchen at 477 Oakwood Avenue for your breakfast. Ola's Kitchen is open until 7 o'clock.
To the sounds of the Caribbean, we groove.
Breakfast,
To calypso,
fried saltfish, stew saltfish, saltfish sauce, mocharin, fried baked, roast baked bread, cake tarts, sweet bread. All happening right this morning at Ola's Kitchen, 477 Oakwood Avenue.
getting together. So should every leader. For we are one people, one destination. So let us move without hesitation. I see we jamming to the sound of the Caribbean, we grooving to calypso and silver. The venue is Tobago, and it's going to be a grand show. Back to Caribbean, mix up. When we start to jam, we going non-stop. I see we jamming to the sounds of the Caribbean, we grooving to calypso and silver.
Yes, 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 yes. Government, people of the world, and everyone else. This is Gem FM. I'm your host, the Sheriff, yours truly, John Calise. And it's a pleasant Saturday morning. The sun is shining, the weather is sweet. Yes, and I am here as usual every Saturday morning and communicating and sharing and loving, sharing the love of God, love of mankind. And this morning we have a special guest with us this morning, Rachel Charles. Well, Rachel Charles is from St. Mark's, Victoria. I don't know, we call them Sunset City, St. Mark's. Almost the Republic of Pablos, you know. Pablo. Yeah, Pablo is from St. Mark's too, who's always here. But this morning we have lovely Miss Rachel Charles. And Rachel Charles, I do not know who Rachel Charles is, guys, but I'm always searching my Facebook page for Grenadians who doing something different, doing something that making waves somewhere, ripples, you know, and I always searching for, and I found Rachel Charles, you know, one of those diamonds, you know, that you a rare gem. So I found her and I sent her a note asking her to appear on Gem FM, and she accepted my invitation to be here. So she's my special guest this morning, and she's 5 hours ahead of my time. And, you know, England have that always have to figure out 5 hours ahead, you know, how could I balance the act? So I don't want to get them in midnight when I do my show and they're sleeping already, you know. I want to get them on the lineman time, the block around my time, 3:30, 4 o'clock, you know what I mean? We'll get them to come on here. So our English, I haven't seen my co-host yet, Delbert, but this is not here yet. But he'll be here shortly. He's late for class today. So I hope you come in to get part of your teachings and you're talking about what you do for today. So ladies and gentlemen, I want to introduce you to my special guest, Miss Rachel Charles. Rachel Charles, good morning and welcome to Gem FM Radio Genesis Magazine. How are you doing?
Good morning. Thanks for having me here and thank you for that intro. I'm doing well. I take it you are?
Yes, I'm good. Being in Canada and cold, you know. It's the sun is shining here. It kind of a damp on the outside. Rain fell last night, but overall it's good.
England is not much different, but at least you have sun. It's grey, so it's normal English weather, grey and wet and damp.
Okay, nice. So yes, so I always wanted to find when I saw your stuff there. I wanted to find who Rachel is, what Rachel does, and how work can help women and make sure that I know I'm a very big fan of helping women who have been traumatized, brutalized, ostracized, criticized, everything. Want to support women. I want to make sure that they be in a space where they can feel comfortable to express themselves fully and to be the real woman that they ought to be and they're created to be. So when I see persons like you having a sort of a knack for doing things to help women, empowering women like yourself, I want to hear from you. And I want the world to know about you, and I want to talk to you about what you're doing. But most of all, I want you to tell us what you do and how women can empower themselves and develop themselves and move forward, grow beyond where they are. So that is my thing here this morning. I want you to talk to us. All right. So Rachel, the floor is yours. Go ahead. Tell us about who you are.
So as a woman, as a Grenadian woman, as a Black woman, I wear quite a few hats. But when it comes to helping women, I call myself the freedom coach. And what that means is I work with people and support those who have their hopes, goals, and dreams that they had on the back burner. They're not ready to give up on those hopes, goals, and dreams. And I help them to bring them to manifestation. So it might be that sometimes you have all these goals that you had from when you were younger and you're not able to do them for various reasons. And I call those reasons prescriptions, because sometimes we have a life that was given to us that was prescribed. So we're told, as a woman, you can't do this. As a Black woman, you can't do this. As a mother, you can't do this. You're from this family, you can't do this. You know, we have all of these different prescriptions, and not only women, but a lot of the times we all have these prescriptions that you can't do these things that you want to do, and you're stuck. And what I do is I work with people who are not prepared to live that prescribed life. They want to be able to fulfill their goals, hopes, and dreams. I reach inside of them, look for those skills, look for those dreams, and I help them build the strength so that they can go forth and bring those goals, hopes, and dreams to fruition. A lot of the women that I work with have been in situations where they experience domestic abuse, and they literally have to build their life back after that, because if you've been in that situation, systematically you've been broken down. Your self-worth could be totally on the floor, and whatever your hopes, goals, and dreams were, it just feels like, you know, give up on that. Whatever you're doing now, you're just in survival mode, keep going. And for me, what I do is I look for those women, or they find me, and I work with them and look for, what is it you wanted to do? What was your dreams? What were your desires? What is it that will make you feel whole again? And I help them build up the strength so that they can stand on their feet and start living a life that they prescribe or they design, not one that was designed. And I call that owning your wings. So for some people, we're always told, you know, you have to grow your wings. My thing is, we already have our wings. We just have to own them. And we just have to, and on the back, you can kind of see it written there. We just have to own the wings we already have and grow strength so that we can go forward and live a life, because it's short, really, if you think of the years that we have on this planet. So why not live it the way that we design it? So that's what I do.
Are you talking about prescription for life? You know, the prescription that we've been sold. As a girl growing up in Grenada, what are some of these prescription, you know, drugs, like, you know, I mean, in the terms of dreams and goals, and can't do this, can't go there, this is a men's world, this is men to be doing that, and you sit back and wait, you know, wait your turn, be this silent girl. What have transformed you, make you be like coming to the person and the space that you're in right now, your agency type? What created that in you now? What have you seen growing up as a child that caused you to take up that mantle to help transform women? I know you mentioned all this stuff there, but what about you? What causes you to come out of that cocoon and become a beautiful butterfly and help you want to become a butterfly as well?
And it's funny you say cocoon, because I really was born into a cocoon. I was born into a family that was very religious, and this particular religion, you were not meant to mix with anybody. There were so many do's and don'ts in that religion, and I always felt like I was held back from being the person that I could have been. I refer to myself as an introvert, but I think I was a conditioned introvert. I was made to be an introvert. And growing up in Grenada, you know, for me, I was kept away. You were a girl, you weren't supposed to do this. You're a child, you're not supposed to do this. There were so many different prescriptions. You're part of this religion, you're not supposed to do this. I think for me, I always had a little bit of a stubborn streak. I was never disrespectful, because I was always brought up to conform, but I always questioned things. I always wanted to know the reasons why. And I'm glad that I kept that. And that's one of the things that I work with people for, is if it don't make sense, ask the question. Don't be afraid to ask the question. And for young girls, I do mentoring with one of the universities here in England to work with young Black students who just need somebody to help them through their uni years. And that's one of the things that I find, is that a lot of them are scared to stand up and ask a question, because they don't want to be singled out or seen as a troublemaker, but it's how you ask the question. So for me, it was always that curiosity, as in, if it's not making sense, I'm going to ask it. So I'm glad that I kept that. And for me, it was just sitting down and figuring out, what is it I want? And it might be that what I want is not the life that maybe my parents planned for me. It was not the life that, you know, was the one that was designed for me, but what was the life that was going to make me happy? And it's a very difficult thing to go through, because you feel that you might be letting people down because of the plans that they had for you. But then that's where a coach comes along and they help you through that and realize that it's about living a life that, like I said, is the life that you design.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because a lot of times if we look at successful people and we think that they don't need a coach, they don't need a manager. Every successful person I see and heard of, they had a coach.
Yes.
Right? Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, you know, probably less credit give to the coach, but the coach will shape them, you know, and say, look, I need to hold, you need to take the ball to that side. You need to dribble to this side better, you know, and walk this way instead of going this way, swing from a higher level angle than this lower level, you get more reach. And in life, as we go through life, you know, people think, well, I could do it on my own, you know, not realizing that everybody needed a coach. And I always said, if Jesus knew, he could have done by himself, but he needed 12 disciples. You know what I mean? So he knew also that he needed help. So we all need help. And as a coach, you've been mentoring young people and women and stuff like that. What are some of the challenges you face as a coach, trying to get people to live the life that was designed for them to live? How do you draw from them and get them to realize, look, there's greatness in me, and you know, greatness in you, and this is what you need to do to bring out your greatness. What are some of the challenges you face trying to get people to think that way and to bring out their greatness?
So yeah, it's not an easy step. It takes a lot. And one of the things I wanted to say, sorry, just before I go into that, where you were talking about having a coach, and I work with people and I say, yes, you need a coach, but if your coach doesn't have a coach, that's a problem. So just bear that in mind.
You know, I like that, because you know, a lot of times, you know, I say to people, if you don't want to manage from somebody else, how do you want to manage somebody else?
Right.
You know, so you have to learn to be managed by somebody to manage somebody else.
Exactly. Yeah? Exactly. Yes. Because even the coach cannot do it by themselves. You have to be able to, you know, free your mind and get that support as well from someone else. So don't take advice from someone who isn't reaching out and build and continually building themselves as well. Because as a coach, I don't have all the answers myself.
Right.
So how the challenges you were saying that I find working, it's the mindset. And so a lot of the time you will see that I call myself the freedom coach, because it always starts in the mind. So whenever I'm working with someone, I look for what are their limiting beliefs. And a lot of the times for those people, in order to break free from those prescriptions that are holding you, the things that you can't do this because, there's a lot of guilt. There's a lot of, you know, I don't want to let these people down. So I spend a lot of my time looking at what are those beliefs that you're telling yourself that you can't do it for. Is it because you feel you're going to let people down? But for most of the time, it's the lack of self-belief, that you don't feel you could do it because you've been kept in this, as you said, cocoon, in this box that there is only a limit to how far you can go. So a lot of the times when we're being told, you can't do this because you're Black, you can't do this because you're a man, you can't do this because you're a parent, it's not always that they're telling you about the responsibilities that you have. A lot of the times what they're telling you is, in your realm of what you're capable of, this is just as far as you can go. So it's believing in yourself that the restrictions you've put on me is not as far as I can go. I can go further. So a lot of the times, like I said, I work on their self-belief. What is it that you want to do? What are your limiting beliefs that stops you from taking that step? We call it procrastination. Yeah. But procrastination is really your body is holding you back because it's scared that you fail. So what are those things that you're telling yourself that you need to reaffirm and write in a different way so that you can start retraining your brain to believe that you can go past this limit that you've put on yourself?
And do you think that, again, talking about the limit and procrastination, do you think a lot of this have to do with what people speak into in people's life? You know, that they don't trust their own self because somebody tell me cannot do this. And I think Les Brown said something, never let somebody's opinion of you becomes your reality. Yes. And quite often than not, we find people living out the reality of other people's thought about them, instead of they live out their God-given rights to exist and to do things for themselves and to become prosperous, become successful, but instead they listen to what other people say about them. And they prefer to work that. True. And I said about them, but there's some positive stuff. People say positive stuff to you, but some people say negative stuff to you, and they say you can't do that. You're too short, you're too tall, you're too dark, you're too white, you're too clean. You know, and we kind of box ourselves in, you know, because of fear of failure, the fear of what people might think about us. And I think Les Brown said it. I go back to him. He says,
he did.
What people think about you is none of your business.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you've seen that. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you think about yourself is most important. But I want to ask you another question, because a lot of times when we say we meet people and we you know, like when you go there and they say, look, I am so and so, right? People, have you ever felt that people don't see you as you are, and then you kind of feel like, I know some coaches, right? And some people say, well, these people, I don't know who I'm going to meet, how these people are going to react to me. Is this something you try to tell people to overcome the fear of what people think in part of your training?
Yeah, because we do grow up having, I think from birth, we want to please our parents. And then sometimes that gets transferred into, you go into school and now you want to please your teachers because you want to get the good grade, or you don't want to be in detention, that kind of thing. Then you enter in relationships and then you want to please your partner. So we're continually doing things to get other people's approval, to have the pat on the back from other people. And we never learn, a lot of us never learn to pat ourselves on the back. We don't realize when we've done something good until somebody else tells us it's good. One of the young girls that I've just started mentoring, she is like an A-class student. Everything she applies for, she gets. And I'm just like, okay, so when did you congratulate yourself? And she's like, I don't know when. And it's because a lot of us, and especially if you did grow up getting A's in school and that kind of thing, it's just seen as normal. Yeah. You never turn around and say, oh, that was good. Because when you come home with your report card, and I know that happened to me, you come home with your report card and it says all A's, it's like just expected. And if you got anything less than that, it's like, hey, how come it's not an A? What happened to that? So you never get to pat yourself on the back. So even when you do great things, you don't appreciate it unless somebody else tells you that you've done well. So a lot of the times I'm working with people taking a step back and saying, look at this. If it was somebody else that did it, if it was your friend that did it, what would you say to them? I would say it was well done. I would want to take them out for a meal or a drink or something. So why are you not doing it for yourself? And it's because for a lot of us, we've been conditioned to please other people and not realize when we've done something good ourselves.
Let me ask you, because coming from Grenada and growing up in the community which you grew up in, Grenada in general, and moving to England, what are some of the disparities that you see among young Black women?
So let me clarify, because I think my parents lied to me, because apparently they say I was born in England, but I don't believe it. So I don't believe it at all. But yeah, I was born in England at the age, I came to Grenada when I was 3, then when I was 6, and then at the age of 10, we came and lived. And then for the next 10 years, I spent the best 10 years of my life in Grenada. So in my heart, I don't care what they tell me, I'm not British, I'm Grenadian. I'm Grenadian. I don't care. Sorry. So you were saying, what are the disparities?
Yes, between the Black young woman in Grenada and the one in the United Kingdom.
I think that's a little bit of a difficult one to answer. I think for me, I say I was blessed in terms of, and I did tell my mother that some time ago, because when I moved to Grenada at the age of 10, I thought my life was ending, because you think, oh God, I'm losing all my friends. I'm coming to Grenada. You've only been there for a holiday for a few months at a time, and then all of a sudden you're living there. Now that I look back, that was the best thing that could ever have happened to me. So I think there's good and bad on both sides. In Grenada, I think we don't realize what we have. We don't realize the opportunities that are there. But sometimes it takes coming out of Grenada, experiencing something different, whether it's in US, Canada, or UK, and then coming back and seeing Grenada in different eyes.
Yes.
I would say, however, growing up in Grenada, and it wasn't until I got a bit older that I realized the gravity of the issue. We have a huge problem in Grenada when it comes to things like grooming, child abuse, domestic abuse.
Wow.
And those are things that I would say, for me, as you could find those things anywhere, but I would say it's a lot more exposed in Grenada. I would be walking to school in my school uniform, and I remember clearly, you would be heckled by men. And it's only now that you look back as an adult and you think, I was in my school uniform. There was no doubt that I was underage, but it's seen as normal. And I would say that those are some things that, and like I said, it happens everywhere in any country, but it does feel that it's not being dealt with properly when it comes to Grenada. Young girls are not being protected when it comes to having that space to grow up and remain innocent. And then the minute they hit the teenage years is, oh, they played woman, they're playing this, they're playing that. But it's because they've been exposed to too much
Yes.
from the start.
You know, I'm glad you raised that point, because we had Dr. Justin Pierre, and if you ever heard about him, he was here on Wednesday night, right? And Wednesday night, Tuesday night. And we spoke a lot about domestic violence, sex trafficking, and human trafficking. And one of the things that people don't really get to realize, that sex trafficking and human trafficking will be right in your community.
Yes.
Right? And one of the things that sex trafficking occurs among school children, parents to bus drivers, bus conductors get a free ride to be able to take the bus to go to town to school, so that they subject the children to sexual slaves, in a sense, to be able to get the free ride because they can't afford to pay the bus fare. And
free ride, free books, free uniform. Yeah.
So that was a problem. People sell the children off to sex to get money to pay to buy groceries and stuff like that. So the sugar daddy sort of come over and you leave the child in the house with him, and you go out just for him to have a time with your daughter for the next hour and a half, 2 hours, and then you come back. So those kind of things is often like pushed under the rug, so to speak, right? And there's no laws really in Grenada per se that will, or let's say, an enforcement agency, like you have the financial unit for money laundering and stuff like that. But to deal with sex trafficking and human trafficking, there's no agency, there's no organization within the system that's set up. And Dr. Pierre is pressing for that, and he's hoping that people could have a petition out to get the government to set up a special agency, a task force, to deal with human trafficking and sex trafficking in Grenada. Other Caribbean countries has that, but Grenada does not have that. So that's one of the things that we're hoping that will happen by putting a petition together to get that happen, because it's a serious problem. Our girls are being groomed from a very young age, and it becomes very difficult at an older age, when they get older, to really break that cycle, until they get to the level of self-consciousness. So look, I'm more worthy than this. Right. My mother did that to me. And some children are, if you listen back, in many cases, women who grow up to be young ladies now, they despise their mother. And they realize that the mother have used them as pawn, to get money. But then they educated because the money that the mother get from the sex trade. You know what I mean? Right,
but, exactly. And what does that do for their self-worth?
It break it down, man. It doesn't help them,
Because that's how I got my education, is through that. And then the sad thing as well is that even though these girls realize it and they were put in this position where they couldn't do any better, they were put in that position, they are now labeled by other people in the community as, this, she's loose, she's fast, she's this. But they were put into this position. It wasn't something that they asked for.
Right. Yeah, it was given to them, put on them, placed on them.
A prescription.
Yeah, a prescription. Yes, it was handed to them to deal with that. I often use that terminology often. Being that coach and having to work with young ladies. Have you in your journey doing this? A lot of young men are also victims of sexual crime and being put aside, and even within the school system, young men leave school, drop out of school than young women. How prepared do you think that the system is ready to embrace young men, to get them back into the system to work in a positive environment?
As a whole, I don't think our community is ready for that. And I would say globally, there is an issue where we don't always want to talk about sexual violence when it comes to young men, boys, or even men in general. But for me as a coach, when I've come across young men like that, what I usually do is I will pass them over to a male coach, because for me, I can work with them, but then I think sometimes it might be better for them to have that male role model. And there's something about the dynamic of a woman speaking to a young man about that may not be as helpful for them as it needs to be. But, I would hope that the male coach that they would be able to work with would be able to build them up in that way and not make them feel less than a man for having that happen to them. But it is a huge problem that I would say as well that needs to be addressed, as much as the issues with young girls as well.
Right. Well, we'll have our St. Patrick's man here. He's the Krong City man, they call him here. Delbert Baptiste is from Chantimel St. Patrick's. And Delbert, good morning. I have with me Rachel Charles from Sunset City St. Mark's, living in London, England. She's a life coach, a freedom coach. We've been talking about her work here and helping out and how, the works that you see and brought, how she was raised and the prescription that was given to us to live by. And I was just enjoying her moment here with me. So now I want you to just introduce yourself to her. Tell her a little bit about yourself so she know who is here with her. She's in good company.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
I do see your post, a lot of your posts.
Okay.
I think we might even be friends on Facebook.
I think we are. Yeah.
I tend to follow only interesting people.
That's what we do. That's why I brought her here, because we're always going to look for good diamonds,
So
Yeah.
what part of St. Mark's are you from?
Victoria.
Okay.
More specifically, Coast Guard.
Okay. So I have a few really great friends from Victoria. I don't know, they may be a little ahead of you. You know Lintus Charles?
The name sounds familiar.
Been a teacher there for a long time. Leonard
I think so.
John, Barry.
The Barrys were my neighbors. Yeah.
Easter Wilson, who unfortunately.
Easter, he was my social studies teacher. We just lost him. Yeah.
Yes. Whoa. I have a story about him. We went to the same school, but he was way ahead of me. And I was competing in the sport, the games or annual athletic and track and field. And he was in Duell. I was in Chance Norton. And as a young student, he realized that I had talent in throwing the shot put, the discus, and the javelin. So in those days, you would only help somebody out who was in your house. You wouldn't help somebody out who was
in another.
Competing against you. But he realized that I had talent that I didn't even know. And he came to me and helped me improve my technique. And then I asked him, I said, why are you helping me? And he said, because someday you're going to be throwing for the school and I want you to win. Okay? I mean, he was still a young man. Think about that, So we remained friends, and then we worked together in the Ministry of Sports during the Revolution. He was just a remarkable human being.
Yeah, he was lovely.
Remarkable.
Yeah.
So
huge loss.
And then there's the other Charles family who lived right on the main street. Rex and
that's my cousin. Those are my cousins.
Susan,
Jimmy, yeah.
They lived in Chantimel for a little while.
Okay.
Yeah, they did. They lived in Chantimel for about 3 years on the Glen Estate, So yeah, I know Victoria fairly well. Well, very well. It was right next to St. Patrick's, of course. And as John said, I am from Chantimel. I'm a little bit of a sort of public policy junkie. And we get together and do this thing. It's always uncomfortable to speak so much about myself, but yeah, I'm definitely into some of the same things that you are doing. And actually, I was having a conversation last night with someone, and how much that what you're engaging will be so beneficial to our country, because I don't want to speak down about my people, because I just love that piece of real estate. But oftentimes I've had great difficulty understanding when I travel back home the quality of the conversation. And for example, in Grenada, I can only think of one business that has good customer service, one in the whole country. So for us, trying to understand how people live, what are important, how we overcome those sort of negative mindsets, how do we remain positive in the midst of adversity. I find that, you know, our beautiful little country is lacking tremendously in those areas. So,
And ultimately, for me, I would say that's my goal. I've been working for London Probation for over 19 years. So I've worked with all different
Wow.
types of offences when it comes to youth crime, gangs, sexual violence, domestic violence. And I haven't done that. And as much as I've done it here in the UK, ultimately, I would like that to benefit Grenada because England has enough of that. So yeah, ultimately, that's the goal.
You know, you just said something there. I want to ask you something because domestic violence. I'm going to touch on that for a bit because in Canada here, it is reported that every 6 days a woman is being killed in Canada within 24 hours of a separation. Every night, 3,000 women goes to a shelter and they take 2,904 children with them to that shelter. Another 400 or so does be turned back every night. It costs about $6 billion a year to help women, to facilitate all the things that goes with them, with the abuse and so on. I think there was something in England about every 3 days a woman is killed in England too as well. What are some of the things that you encounter in that specific area of work with domestic violence in England?
I think if you look at it from the point of view, so you can say, you know, every 3 days, but if you think of 4 women, you know, you go into a restaurant, you might see 4 women sitting there at a table eating a meal. 1 in 4 women have experienced domestic abuse at some point in their life. So think of any 4 women you know, or you see 4 women sitting there, one of those women, more than likely, at a minimum, would have experienced it. And I think when it comes to abuse, is just looking at what the abuse is as well. If over the past 10 years, we've moved away from saying domestic violence, because sometimes we would look at, we don't realize what abuse is unless we're seeing black eyes and bruises and that kind of thing. So domestic abuse encompasses everything from violence to emotional abuse, sexual abuse, psychological abuse, and that kind of thing. And it's something that is ongoing. Like you say, they're going into these shelters and being turned away from the shelters and sometimes having to go back to the abuser with children. So you can imagine the children are seeing it and then the cycle continues. And one of the things I would say when it comes to abuse as well is we spend a lot of time trying to help the victims get out, which we need to do. We also spend a lot of time helping victims build resilience, but then we also know resilience is not something that's supposed to be there for the long term. It's supposed to be for a short term to help you. And resilience is about the bounce back. How do you bounce back from that difficult time? And if you've been in a situation like that where you've been abused for a long period, it's very difficult for you to bounce back. It's like having an elastic that you keep stretching, and after a while, it's gonna stretch to the point where it's not gonna bounce back to where it was before. It could never be returned. So we spend a lot of time working with the victims, and what I find is we don't spend a lot of time working on the perpetrators. There are young boys who are in these situations who may, not everybody, who may in turn turn around and they themselves become abusive, even, you know, and abuse doesn't only go through the males. It could be the young girls who are seeing this thing and thinking it's not going to happen to me, so they turn around and they become abusive to partners as they get older. But we spend so much time looking at, you know, how to the victims, that we don't spend a lot of time in looking at the cause of domestic violence. Why is it that somebody feels it's okay to speak to somebody in a way that's demeaning, that would damage their self-worth, that could cause psychological trauma? Why is it that somebody feels it's okay to put their hands on another person, and we're only trying to keep this person safe and not always, you know, educating people to realize that when you have an issue, this is how you solve it, not by your fists, not by, putting someone else down.
But having said that, I'm a firm believer that in the family structure, how much do you think of a single family or that is greatly affecting the training with the imbalance, because there's only a mother, only a father in the home? How does that resonate, come into developing this pattern of domestic violence?
I think it's always difficult to say that it's the family structure, because you never know how somebody could become a single parent. It could be, through something as I say natural, but as unnatural as a death. It could be sudden, and then somebody is suddenly put into this position where they're a single parent and they have to do. I think it's what you do. I think it's your own values in how you're bringing up the child. So for me, I was in a position where I was in a relationship that was hugely abusive for nearly 20 years. And as much as I was in the relationship, so, on the outside, you would look at this relationship and it looks like a perfectly normal nuclear relationship, mother, father, and children. It was hugely abusive. So, and it wasn't until I would say that I did a lot of parenting by myself. I've got 2 boys. I taught them how to stand up and I'm a woman. I taught them how to stand at a toilet to wee. I taught them how to tie a tie. I did the laces. I did all of that stuff. When they had somebody there who should have been in a position to do that, but didn't really take up the mantle. And I would say it wasn't until I came out of that and took my boys out of that, because I didn't want them to see this and think that this was a normal way of being. This was not how you're supposed to behave in a relationship. I would say that coming out of that was one of the best things I did. But then I also have brothers. I also have cousins who, even though they didn't have the good figure in terms of a father, they had their uncles, my brothers that they could look at. They had cousins who they would be around. So I think I find it very difficult, maybe because I have a soft spot for single mothers, because I am one now. That it's difficult, and there are single fathers who are doing such a good job and not getting credit for it, who are raising young girls as well, So I think it comes down to the individual and the values as what you see as how to raise good humans, rather than always the family structure, because there is this push and I think sometimes the push to keep people together is sometimes more damaging than it is when telling people, call it quits if it's not working, because you can have people together. And there are some people, like for me, for example, I stayed in my situation for nearly 20 years because I didn't want to be the stigma of the single parent. You read these statistics of, boys from single parents are more single mothers are more liable to end up in the criminal justice system. I work in the criminal justice system. I didn't want my sons to be there. So by any means necessary, I was working, overtime to try and get this family unit together, until you just think it's not working. Call it quits. You're going to do better by yourself. So I think it's more so of people, having a family unit that works, rather than blaming it on a single family unit, because you don't know how, by the best will in the world, you can have 2 parents together that is causing more psychological damage to children than one parent on their own.
Yeah, I say that because I think somebody made a very interesting observation. A lot of times, even in the ideal family, we talk about mother and father grew up, I have seen it myself, and one of the things I often say, I see it on many of the issues I have, that is some of the traits of my father was negative. I do not want to continue them. I make a conscious decision not to do that, and there's other people who will see that it's normal to do, and they continue doing it. So they kind of take the baton from daddy and start doing the wrong thing instead of taking there's a quick way to pass the baton so you don't drop, And so I am look at not only my father, but look at other people who making a positive impact in the community as well, and said, I'm going to take the goodness of my father and take the goodness of my person and build my life around that. You know, so for me, I always believe that it takes a village also to raise a child. Yes, and this child must be able to observe the community in which you live. And I think when you reach a certain age, you're responsible for your life, and not use the negative as a crutch to walk and to continue doing and to repeat the cycle of violence. You know, I think when you do that, you know, you're not giving yourself the freedom to become who you are. You're just adopting other people's way of living, not yours. You know, so I think that the question of violence is something that has to be looked at in not just in a tunnel vision, but in a big way, and see how we could, as a community, solve this problem by mentoring and being the big brother, big sister thing to the young ladies. We see people who are in distress, but sometimes we're afraid to intervene, you know. And even when we see women being abused, and we see the signs of our workplace and our schools, we sometimes say, well, I don't even want to get involved in it, you know. Speak up, you know, start talking to it, you know.
And there's two things that people say about that when they don't want to get involved, because number one, they say, oh, you know, I don't want to get involved because she's going to run back to him. You know, it takes so many tries to get a woman out of an abusive relationship that, you know what, even if she runs back to him, at least you did the right thing. And that she's going to remember that because somebody else saw what was happening and tried to get her out of it. So even if she does run back, that is imprinted in her that, you know what, somebody tried to help me. So she knows there's people out there helping. And then the second one is they don't want to get involved because they don't want the person to turn on them. And I was having a conversation with somebody a few weeks ago, and I was just amazed at this thing where, you know, if somebody is in the middle of assaulting someone, you judge the situation. You're not always going to jump in, because obviously if this person is just acting like a crazy person, you don't want to be in the middle of that, and then you too could be assaulted. You gauge the situation. But my thing was, I know, because there was a, and I don't know the whole story around it, but I remember there was a concert in Grenada not long ago, and there was a man who went into the woman's toilets and he was assaulting the woman in the toilet, and there were so many women around. And I said that there is absolutely no way that I could have been in that toilet and a man felt that he had the power to come into that toilet and abuse a woman in there, whether I was alone or even if I was with my friends. There was no way he would have been able to put his hand on that woman in a woman's toilet. It shows the audacity, the power he thinks he has, that he could go in there and do it and get away with it. And there were men saying, no, I wouldn't go in there and pull him off. And I was just like, what? How? And there are so many women who are going back to situations because they do not feel protected by their community, because we're going to sit on there and watch it and not call the police. And also men are not going to call out their friends and say, listen, what are you doing? Why do you think that's okay? Because they're still going to sit on the weekend and drink and play dominoes or whatever with these same guys who they know are abusing their friends. They're not being called out. So what we're doing, like I said before, is we're trying to make women so strong and resilient. What we're doing is burning out these women by telling them you have to be strong and you have to get out. But we're not calling out the people who are actually perpetrating it and getting it to stop from there.
All right. Now we have another friend of mine, my co-host, Tex Manoran, is here with me. Tex another strong Black woman as well. She work with a lot of young people and adults who go through the same thing. So we're here this morning and we're going to talk to Rachel Charles, who is called a freedom coach, a life coach. She's hailed from St. Mark's, Sunset City, same as Rafael Paul. And Delbert made mention of a teacher that created an impact on his life. How much of that teacher's influence somehow affected your way or influenced you in you know, the way Delbert spoke of him, and he was your social studies teacher. How much influence he had on you becoming who you are today? What part of his ingredients that he used, of his prescription that was able to empower you today?
Easter, well, we were not allowed to call him Easter in school. His name was Mr. Wilson. But he was just such a lovely person. And I would say in terms of being in school, his demeanor, as he was a very tall man, very powerfully built. He was athletic. Yeah, he was quite an athletic, sporty guy. And I would say that I've never seen him. I don't think I ever heard him raise his voice. He must have at some point. I never really heard him. He was authoritative. And I think what I really got from him was that strength and power doesn't have to be thrown about. You could be calm and your authority would exude itself just by how you carry yourself. And he had a graceful, as a man, he had a graceful way that he walked. It was like he was never just rough and brash, and I never got that from him. And I would say if there was something I really got from him, it was just how he glided, through life. And he was just such a lovely person to talk to. There was wisdom that came from there, and just somebody who was just so level-headed. You could sit down and have a conversation and see two sides to a story. He was somebody who I would say that, when it came to how you dealt with problems, it didn't have to be excitable. He was just level-headed. Really got that from him.
Yeah, wow. I mean, you perfectly capture him. But there was one time when he's very aggressive.
Right.
When he's on the football field.
Okay, right.
He was a talented sportsman. I think he may have played for Grenada in the defense as a defensive back. When he was on the football field, he was ferocious. You would not think that.
Yeah, you don't want to get tackled by him.
Yes, you would not think. But you are right. He was tall, big, broad shoulders, and I don't know if he recognized that or it's just his humility that he did not have to use that physique to intimidate anybody. And that's what I remember him like that. My only experience with him when I just went to Shaper, and he came up and helped me, and then sort of mentored me through high school, and then we ended up working together. So when he passed away, I was and actually I visited him in late 2019. That he had invited me because he had somewhat of a small gym in Victoria.
Yeah.
To come on and work out with him. So I went down there, I think it was in December of 2019 or November, and had a few sessions with him. And unfortunately, that's the last time I see him. But simply a great human being, Yeah.
Mr. Wilson set us straight one time without even saying anything. One time during this term, I don't know, when you just start playing up, we might have been in Form 3 or so, and we discovered boys. And I know sometimes we used to kind of go up lunch, like in between classes. Sometimes we'll be behind the school and we're talking to the boys and that kind of thing. Or we started messing about in class. And I remember the parent evening, I hope my mom isn't watching this. Anyway, the parent evening was coming up. And he said, for all of you who's been playing around, remember parent evening coming up. That's all he said.
That's it.
And I was just like, whoa, okay. I started to sweat now. And I remember, so all the teachers would be placed in the classes, and you had to bring your parent to each teacher, and you sit on with the teacher, and then you go to the next one. And deliberately, I saw him sitting there. There was no child or parent sitting in front of him. And I was like, can't go in front of Mr. Wilson now, no? So I said, oh, no, it's all right. Let's go to Mr. Narayan, the maths teacher. Let's go to him first, then we'll come back to Mr. Wilson. And that's how I dodged it, because by the time we came back, he was gone. But I tell you, after that, the next term, we were straight as an arrow, because it's just like, we're not playing around again.
So, are you there, John?
Somebody else commenting that they sound a bit muffled, so I was just double checking to make sure that everything was okay here. That was my very first editor of Genesis magazine. She was just listening and she was saying a bit muffled, so I tried to adjust the volume here. But yeah, the whole idea of domestic violence and being a life coach, Rachel, when it comes to domestic violence and women and children and stuff like that, what are some of the advice you will release to some of the parents, people listening to this, and teachers who are in school in particular, to be able to deal with children who come from those homes? What do you say to parents or teachers to identify, our community personnel to identify victims? What are some of the things that you'll be looking to and say, this person has been a victim? How can you help them to identify those persons?
The thing is, I don't even know if you would know. You may not know when it comes to children. Sometimes it could be just a change in attitude. Mm-hmm. So there may be one way, they may be outgoing, and all of a sudden, because it could go both ways. It could be that the child has suddenly started playing up in class and you're wondering what's going on. And sometimes we could put it down to, they're rude, or they're starting to get older, and not realizing that it might be something going on in the home. Or it could be that the child has become quite subdued and they're not talking as much. And I think when it comes to parents and people like that, is just whatever change you see in a child, just try to figure out, if they're okay, and not chalk it down to, the child is rude, or, it might be okay. Just it's about building a rapport, because in order for that child to tell you something's going on, they have to trust you, they have to like you, they have to feel safe. And if you haven't built that with a child, you're never going to get the information out of them. I would say, however, that with my 2 sons, they never gave trouble in school. I never had any kind of thing, but I know that in the house, all 3 of us were walking on eggshells and trying not to upset the person we were living with at the time, their father. But I don't think any teacher would have had a fathom that they were living in a home where there was abuse taking place. So it's very difficult to spot it. But I would say, if you do see something different, whether it's the child or whether you speak, or maybe it might be speaking to the parent as well, because sometimes as a parent, you will know. And I think to myself, I wonder if a teacher had said something to me, would I have divulged what was going on? I don't know, because sometimes you're scared that social services come in and they want to take your children and that kind of thing. But it probably would have prompted to me that, what you think you're saving your children from, because I know for me, I thought, I'm keeping a lot of the stuff from them. Let him take out his anger on me and try to keep it away from them. It would prompt many parents to realize that you're not actually shielding your child from anything. They know what's going on. So it might be that, the teacher who might see something and say something to the parent is actually saving the child or saving that parent. And just being mindful when you say it, because if you see 2 parents stand up there, you don't want to say anything, because you go and say, I think, is everything okay at home? And the perpetrator is potentially hearing that. When they go back home now, they could be taking it out on the kids. What are you saying in school? What have you, and that's, so it's being mindful, it's being just a little bit insightful. Read the room when you see children acting a certain way, or if you want to broach it with parents.
I know that there are some school counselors in different schools, but teachers are not really trained to be counselors per se, right? And sometimes it becomes a chore for teachers to really groom that child. I mean, I come to teach maths, I want to teach maths and go to the classroom. I come to teach English, I want to get, that trouble child is not my problem, I want to get him out of the class, call the authorities, deal with him, instead of identifying, have a conversation with that child. Do you think much more should be done, apart from teachers training, to do with psychological evaluation of students in the classroom? Do you think something like that should be done, so you help release or to help to groom that child, to make him to identify the child and help him out of the crisis, and be able to get him to talk to him about what's going on at home, so you could better adjust that child to become a better man or a woman?
It's difficult because, as you say, it's not their job. They're there to teach maths, and a lot of the time, sad. I love teachers. I used to be one. I taught in St. Rose for a little while before I came back to England. It's one of the best jobs I had, actually. But there are some teachers who just don't have the time for it. They don't have the brain capacity. I dare say there are some teachers who aren't very fond of people, of children, even though they're in that position.
Right.
But there will be some teachers who will have it in themselves that if they see something, they would take a child aside and, you know, have a conversation, you know. But I would say that if you're not that way inclined, or if you don't have the time, at least if you spot something and something is happening, then pass it to those who are in the school, who are in that capacity. So they may be, I remember when we was in St. Rose, we had, I think it was the counseling committee or the disciplinary committee or something like that. So whenever there was stuff happening with certain children, it would be passed to us in the committee. And so we would sit down and talk to them about, you know, what was going on. To be fair, the disciplinary committee was more about discipline. You have to behave rather than finding out what was wrong. It's fine. It's striking that balance. I think now, though, I think people are becoming a little bit more aware. I'm hoping that they're a little bit more aware when it comes to emotions, and it's not just you're a child, so you have to behave, but looking behind the why. Because children don't just get up and start misbehaving, you know, unless something is going on, or unless they're from a dysfunctional family or something like that. But there's usually a why, you know. There will be, I remember there was a video not long ago of a little boy, and he was really defiant in front of the teacher, and she's telling him, you're rude. And it's just like, that's not how you do it. You're standing over him in that authoritative state. He's small, looking up at you. You already have the power dynamic, which is in your favor by being the bigger, stronger adult. And he does, you know, who, even if you wanted to say what was wrong with you, you wouldn't say it because you're going to break down crying and you don't feel safe or protected in that space. But I'm hoping that in time, when it comes to, you know, those committees that are in the school, I don't really know how they work, but I'm hoping that there are people who will be in those positions who will start finding out what's happening. And to be fair, if we're talking about Grenada, for many people, if there's a child playing up, a lot of people already know what's happening in the home because we know what's happening with our neighbors.
Yes.
So I think it's not ignoring things and acting like it's just the child's fault, but then do we have the ability to have the conversation with the parents as well, to say, this is what's happening, this is the situation you're in, this is how it's impacting on the child, and not make the parent feel like you're coming down on them as well, because then that's the knock-on effect. Yeah. Is the parent feeling you're telling me I'm not a good enough parent? What do you know? So it's a delicate balance of how to deal with that.
Before I ask Tex,
a lot of work to do.
No, someone made a comment in the chat about self-love. How much of self-love really resonate with the behaviors we're talking about here today? The domestic abusers, the abusers themselves, and, you know, people feeling less worthy of themselves. You know, how much of that contributes to the abusing of others? Self-love, lack of self-love.
Well, they say hurt people, and that doesn't give an excuse to the person who is the perpetrator of domestic violence. But if you look at the people who are usually inflicting pain on other people, it's because they are already feeling pain from whatever it is that they have dealt with or through their life, and that they haven't been able to work through. So because they feel like crap, they don't know any other way to sometimes deal with another person. And sometimes things could be going great, but they're going to sabotage it by how they behave with other people. And if that person doesn't love themselves, they're not going to be able to find somebody and love that person, because it has to start with yourself first. So that person who's the perpetrator doesn't love themselves, isn't able to love the other person properly. So this other person in the relationship is going to be feeling unloved. And then what that does, depending on what type of abuse is being inflicted, it could be emotional abuse where you're being told you're fat, you're ugly, you're this, you're that, nothing you do is right. That is going to break down your self-love. You can't love yourself if there is somebody telling you you're not good enough. So, and then, as you can imagine, that will go to the children as well. So self-love is a big thing. You have to And in order to, I would say, get out of a situation like that, people always say, you have to love yourself. And it's such an easy thing to say.
Yeah.
And I could turn around and say, and I've heard people say, yeah, I love myself, but do you really? Do you love yourself? Because, it's difficult having those conversations with people because you don't want them to feel worse than they already feel. Because I could say to you, if you loved yourself, you would not be in a situation where you have somebody putting their hands on you all the time, and then you coming back and cooking a meal and acting like it's okay and rubbing his shoulders. That's not loving yourself. That's loving somebody else more than yourself. So self-love is literally, literally stripping it back to basics. And for some people, I have to do what's called mirror work. So it's getting them to stand in front of a mirror and looking themselves in their eyes. And I had to do that myself. So imagine every morning when we get up, we get dressed, we always look in a mirror. There's hardly anybody who doesn't have a mirror and we don't look in the mirror to get ourselves dressed. But do you look yourself in the eye? Can you look yourself in the eyes? And that's when you know where you are in terms of how you feel about yourself. And I realized that when it came to my situation, because I was getting ready, and this was years ago when I was going through my stuff and training to be a coach at the same time. And it wasn't until one day that I actually looked in the mirror and looked in my eyes. And it's like you're able to connect with yourself, because a lot of the time when you're going through those things, it's like it's happening to somebody else. There's a disassociation. It doesn't feel like it's happening to you. It feels like it's happening to someone else. And when you're able to sit down and look yourself in the eye and say, this is how I feel about myself now, that's when you start connecting with yourself and then realizing what you're worth, what you're willing to accept somebody else doing for you, what you're willing to not accept, when you can build the strength to walk away from certain things. And that's when you start building up that self-love, when you're able to look at yourself and be totally honest. Because when somebody, when you're talking to somebody, it's like, look me in my eye, look me right in my eye. When you can do that to yourself, that's when you know that you're starting to connect to yourself. Because a lot of the times we can't, because we realize that we're living lives where we're in situations that are uncomfortable to us. And sometimes you have to ask yourself the question, am I comfortable in this situation? And look in the mirror. And can you hold that gaze? If you can't hold that gaze, you know that what you're doing is wrong and you need to get out of it.
Great. Before I know Tex is there, I want to bring Tex to ask you if I have a few questions she may be having her mind there to ask you. We see a lot of domestic violence and men being the perpetrators, right? And there's a lot of biological issues that women go through, the changes that men doesn't understand, right? For example, menopause is one thing, postpartum is another thing that happens to women quite often. And because of lack of knowledge, men not understanding that they might leave their wife home one the morning and they come back home with a totally different woman. And they say, well, this is my kiss someone good morning, and I hug and I went to work. When I come back, everything I touch is the wrong thing, the wrong place, the blue cup instead of the pink cup. You know what I mean? I don't want this stuff. I don't want this stuff. Can you help me with the baby? Why are you putting on the baby there? Why, and all this stuff that happening. And I think like, what happened to this woman? And the man now reacting violently because he doesn't understand why this woman just changed on me. Have you encountered in your dealing women who have been through postpartum and the men who do not understand how to do it and then turn into a violent situation?
It could. Sorry, Tex, were you saying something?
Go ahead. I'll wait after.
Sorry. It could happen. It does happen. But my thing is if you want to be in a relationship with somebody, it's like, if I'm going to buy a particular car or I'm going to buy something, I'm going to research that car. So if you are not going to take the time to find out what it is to be with a woman, they're going to be having a menstrual cycle every month and their moods could change. They may, they're going to have a baby and they may be postpartum depression. They may go through menopause and this might be their mood changes, and you're not ready for that. Then you don't know what's going to happen to the woman that you want to be in a relationship with, and you're not going to find out how this person works, then I'm not going to put the blame on the woman, because you're coming into this relationship with this person. You have to research what it is to, what is a woman? Not every woman has, because I really hate it when some people say, oh, she's on her monthlies, because not every woman goes through those kind of changes, or or those kind of mood swings and that kind of thing. But you have to find out, does your woman go through those mood swings? What is it like? If you know that the pink cup or the blue cup is her favorite, why are you going and touch the blue cup when problems at that time? So, you have to look at, you can't be in it and just think that she just has to go along with it, because the same way that there's men that go through their mood swings too. He was fine when he went to work in the morning, somebody upset him, and then he come through the door and drop down the bag on the side there, and you're sitting down there like, what happened to him? Don't take so it works both ways.
Well, so the reason why I asked that, because I don't think enough. I mean, for me, I was very fortunate. The school I went to, and they also have all these classes. The family planning is to come into the school and teach all those stuff. So I grew up understanding, and I had 7 sisters. So you can imagine what happened 7 sisters in the house, right? And then, so you get to understand all this stuff. And then I had a wife who was very much educated to me, and I remember one night we was in the cinema, and she said, I want to go home. I said, we just get in the cinema. What are you talking about, And she said, we got to go. So me now being the submissive husband, I always say I'm the submissive husband. I said, okay, let's go, get up, and she goes, and he said, as soon as I get home, I got to go in the shower. And then I understand what's going on right away, So a lot of men doesn't understand that. They might be somewhere, someplace with a wife. And sometimes, again, we talk about that on our show, our marriage show. A woman could go through menopause for 5, 6, 7 years, and she don't want you to touch her. She just want you to be there, but she want to have an affair, not like that. And some men feel, well, you're always going with the girls, you're always going out late, you must be having somebody, why you don't want me? And it's not that she don't want you, it's just that just the phase she going through at this time. And most men don't understand that, and they attribute that to having an affair with somebody else outside. How do you think that we need to do more education of our men in that regard to avoid some of the pitfalls that we see? I've been hearing a lot of it.
It could be educating, but I think it's communicating. And I don't think we communicate enough as adults, because everybody's going to be different. And I think people set themselves up to fail when they have an idea of what a relationship's going to be, and every single relationship that they get in, they expect the person to behave a certain way, but they don't figure out how this individual that you're with now is going to behave. And it might be that, yes, she likes going out, and if you're feeling insecure about that, because maybe from experiences that you've had, is have the conversation rather than, assuming that something might be going on, and then you're mad, and it affects all different aspects of your relationship, because then maybe the person might not want to be intimate with you because you feel, oh, I wonder if they're doing something. But you have to have the conversation. And I think literally is that Lauryn Hill song where it says, it could all be so simple, but we rather make it hard. If we speak and say, this is how I'm feeling, or when you do this, it makes me feel like this, and then the person could say, oh, I didn't realize that, I just took that for normal because that's how I grew up and that's what I always do. You don't have to worry about this because when I go here, this is what I'm doing, or I'm with Suzette and Karen and that kind of thing. And maybe, sorry, with Suzette. It's having the conversation and finding out how the other person ticks. And if you know something makes the other person upset, then don't do it. And or if this might be a little bit controversial, but I think as well that sometimes we try to bend ourselves over backwards to meet the needs of other people, when there are times when we have to have that conversation to say, you know what? You're a great person. I'm a great person. But together, this ain't working. so let's go our separate ways. But instead, sometimes you have two people who could be great people and great partners, just not together, but they make themselves miserable trying to make it work.
Mm.
And if you have that conversation, if you have that thing to say, you know what, I love you, but I don't think this is going to work. Sometimes that's the way to go. But I think as humans, we have this thing that when you find this person, you just have to be there forever. But people change, like you said, you know, there's times where, you know, as people get older as well, some of the way you think might change, but because you're there and you're committed, you know, it's just like you can't leave. And sometimes it isn't about, so on the one hand, it might not be about leaving, but it's having that conversation. I don't really like this anymore, and letting the other person know, because they might continually, I don't know, maybe at one point you loved lilies and roses, and it's like, you know what? No, I went to this place and I don't like lilies anymore. They remind me of something, and telling the person, stop buying me those lilies, please. You know, get me something else. So this is what I like now. I don't like caramel anymore. It makes me, you know, I prefer this. Have the conversation with the person. But sometimes we expect, and both men and women, we expect the other person to be mind readers. And
all right. Okay. So hold on there. Okay. Go ahead, Evan.
But isn't it difficult to sort of get to that stage if you did not, if that level of communication you're talking about, sometimes it really exists. So if you built your relationship from the very beginning, and one of the pillars of that relationship was communicating, it's easier to get to that stage that you're talking about. But so many of us get into relationships, right? Deeply personal relationship. And it's purely based on the physical. So we don't help each other build sort of emotional intelligence around the relationship. So when the difficult times come in, or the changes come in, then it's almost impossible to because it was not part of your everyday thing that you did in terms of growing that relationship. How does that, if you never did it at any point in time in your relationship, where you're having sort of deep conversations about diverse topics, how do you you know, start at that point in time? Because it's always more difficult to start when there is a breakdown, and especially so for men, right? Because we tend to be a lot more logical, and we see things, you know, 1, 2, 3, black and white, and women are far more sort of complicated. There are a lot of nuances about them, and what we don't recognize is that those levels of complication, those levels of nuances, is actually what makes her interesting. But when there is a breakdown, instead of seeing that as something positive and looking at, here we have 5, 6, 10 things, okay, 6 or 7 is working, this 3 are not working. How do we improve on this? How do we arm ourselves? How do we, you know, to give ourselves the tools to make those kind of changes?
I think if you didn't start from the beginning, it's going to be very difficult to start halfway through a relationship when things start to go left. And by that point, there might be so many different things that have happened that you've never addressed throughout the years, that when you do sit down now and say, you know what, let's sit down, and you're trying to communicate, the other person might start taking it personally, because it's going to be a list of, you've done this, you've done that, I'm not happy about this, I'm not happy about that. And it's because you didn't start from that basis. And for a lot of people, even when we were growing up as children, we didn't see that level of communication in the home. So then you come now and you're adults and you go into relationships, and like I think it was John that was saying, you get into these relationships, you didn't start off, maybe it went so fast into, you know, a full-blown relationship before you found out, are we really compatible? And so down the road now, you're trying to have that conversation. It's going to be difficult, if ever it could actually happen. So yeah, it's a difficult, that would be a very difficult one. But if we're able to start off where we're open and having free, open communication, then it's a lot easier down the road, because what won't happen is that there's going to be years of things that have been unsaid, things that you let slide, so that when you finally 5 years later, 10 years later, want to have the conversation, you're bringing up stuff from 1995 that you should have addressed and never did.
It's true. And I'm laughing because checks always say, unpack your bag, of all the stuff from before you come in here with it, because I have my stuff, you have your stuff. Then there is this thing that you live with your mom for 40 years or 30 years, and I live with my mom for 30 years, 40 years, and then it comes with a culture clash from different family backgrounds.
Yeah.
Because the culture in your home and your community from which you came is different from the one which I came from. I remember having to counsel a couple one time, and they fought over a Christmas tree. Can you believe this?
It's the little things.
Because my mom put the trimmings on the tree this way, and my mom put it this way. So I want to do it this way. And
but John, that was not really about the Christmas tree.
no, they had issues. So the fight came about, and she pushed him down. He knocked his head. Boom! Got back up with the rage, and he pushed her down. And she called the police.
Oh.
And then they took him away. And then he couldn't come within 500 meters of the home. And then he had the anger management course. Not her, but him. Had to take anger management course. Not her. So she couldn't live in her life and good. And then she repeat the cycle with another partner. So I know she got to 3 other partners besides him for the same violence. But all the other men had to go to get counseling, not her. And she couldn't do the same thing.
But they did what they wanted her to do with the Christmas tree, I take it.
Yeah, they had to end up doing. But then
like you said, it's not about the Christmas tree.
No. But then she has her own problem for herself, but never addressed it. So she keep doing it to men all the time. She has, and then boom.
And that could be about the issue that you spoke about earlier, right? So she may have grown up seeing,
mom being dominant.
In a sort of toxic, violent situation, and she has decided there is no way I'm ever going to put up with that. So she's sort of taking preemptive action to make sure that that she establishes some
boundaries,
clear boundaries or clear lines of combat, actually, that she's not going to accept. And but like Rachel said, it really, really seriously comes down to whether or not you're able to communicate with that person, and in a sense, that kind of depth in your ability to communicate really begins with yourself. Because if you cannot talk to yourself internally, look at what you are doing and what mistakes you are making and how you are correcting it, then you're never going to be able to do that with anybody else.
Right.
Yeah. All right. So again, this show is brought to you by Ola's Kitchen, 477 Oakwood Avenue, and Cookies Pastry Delight, Tech's favorite pastry when she's in Grenada. And Stephen was in Christ Ministries with Pastor Michelle happening. And don't forget Frontline Barbers. Looking for a good haircut? Just check out Frontline Barbers at 530 Oakwood Avenue in Toronto. All right. So if you want the business to be advertised on this radio station, please call us or visit us at gemfm.ca and let us know that you want your business to be promoted on GMFM every Saturday, every day of the week. We do it here nice and sweet for you. With us today is Rachel Charles, a proud daughter of St. Mark's, yes, Sunset City, now residing in Kent in the United Kingdom. She's a life coach and she's a freedom coach. I think the freedom sounds more better for me. I just love the freedom thing because once you get to be educated enough, you'll be free enough, right? So, and with me, with Delbert Baptiste, my co-host from time to time, from the very first night I started doing the shows, Delbert Baptiste have been here with me, back and forth, the Sunset City man, and Tex Manwaring, my accidental friend. Never knew who she was, never knew where she come from, but always saying a prayer on my show every night, my unique prayer, and I answered the prayer one night. And I said, who is this lady? Who is this sharing me this prayer? And one prayer, I thought it was a prayer that cries out to me and saying, help me. So I called her and I said, hi, doctor. No, I'm busy now. She hung up the phone, gone, Call a second time. She gone again, And then one day I sat at work and having lunch. And this priest said to me, go call text. And I said, call for what? I ain't going to call text. The guy said, who you talking to? I said, talking to God. The guy said, you must be crazy. So I left my food. I go pick up the phone. I call text. And he phoned me about 6 or 7 times. And I got about to hang up. She said, oh my God. Pick up phone, pick up. Oh my God. I said, you know who it is? She said, yeah, I know. The guy from Jim FM. I said, that's an ordinary guy. God asked me to call you to come on this show to do your unique prayer in the morning with me tomorrow morning. He said, really? Me? I said, well, who I'm talking to? I'm talking to you, right? And then this priest said to me, give her her own show. I said, her own show to do what? Like, really? Now, I want to say, like, God, you're crazy now, I can't just stick it on my show like that. He said, no, give her her own shows. So I said, no, God want me to give you your own show too. And you got to talk about something that affecting you, something like that. Now I'm going to show this show. She had to do the show the night, 8 o'clock the night, Wednesday night. He said, no, I can't do 8 o'clock. I said, 8:30. He said, no, 9 o'clock. I said, 9 o'clock it is tonight. So come up with your show. And she get heart to heart. Men hurt twice than women. And for the last 3 years, her show been going every night, 8 o'clock. Domestic violence, men hurt twice more than women. And so here is Tex. And my co-host on the morning show, giving intimacy in worship. We started off with get your praise on, and now I give her the old show, but I just released the show into her hands to run by herself. I just leave her on more and say, you in charge of the show this morning. And from then I just leave her to do the show. So here she is, Miss St. George's.
Oh, Miss Grenville. Miss Grenville.
She's adopting Grenville now. See that? Because she now know where Grenville is proper. She's the only Grenadian that didn't know where the whole of Grenada. She just knew St. George's. Williamson Road, Ghana's Beach. Boom, that's it. Monjalu, not nice, but in a good way. She just came back from Grenada and she come here now. She tell them what St. Patrick's is, Leper service, and she educating us now. So she get a blue passport. We hope when she go back to Grenada next time, and she get to meet Miss Grenada, Tricia Grant Lewis, and have some fun with them. We will give her the green passport, the ambassadorship passport from Gem FM. So welcome, Gem FM, welcome, Tex Morin, and meet Miss Rachel Charles, life coach, freedom coach. Go ahead, Tex. Any question for Miss Rachel? She's
I knew I had a twin somewhere, but I couldn't figure it out where. Hearing her this morning, I go like, yikes, I find my twin. Well, my name is Tex Warren. I'm so happy there's another woman in the world like me who is able to talk on the behalf of men and also hurt, because so many men come into the relationship and have never unpacked their bags. And when God revealed to you what is in the bag without you looking in the bag, because the bag is locked, padlock, you have to know all the codes and get into those bags. And the Lord will say to you, this man is hurting, and he give you the age of when the hurt start and everything. And that man would never accept the fact that he is hurting. And if you don't understand hurt or see how men is hurting, they in a relationship and they often go out. Different women, Susan, Carol, Joycelyn, and then they come back and they settle. Then they go on with Carol and whosoever, and they settle again. It's a man that is hurting. And now they have a word for it, which is in the Bible. It's in Second Timothy. They call a narcissist. Denying the power of God. They are narcissists. But when I start to dig deep into the word about narcissists, do you know we have Christian narcissists?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Women. Yeah. I say yikes. Women.
Yeah.
I say yikes, because when two people come into a relationship, and if the both of them is hurting, you're setting yourself up for 2 hours and 16 minutes. 16 minutes. Get out as fast as you can. And I think that we like to tell ladies, well, if you really know who you were, you wouldn't go into it. Or if you're strong, then why are you there? when a woman is in a relationship and you hear she says, I'm gonna get out, I'm gonna get out. In order to get out, your body and your heart have to speak the same language. It's not your mind. It's not, I had enough, so I'm gonna run. Hence the reason why so many ladies come back in and get shot, get scotch, get acid, get all kind of different things, get bullets, because their heart and their body is not speaking the same language. And so is a man. A ghostwriter will go, and a narcissist, they're going to go and come back and go and come back because they're not speaking the same language. You would only leave when your heart and your body speak the same language. And you say is when you step in front of a mirror. And when you begin to value who you are as an individual, right in the mess, you can change the whole dynamics of things. And you don't have to run. Once you begin to look at the mirror and you speak to your heart, you call your heart. You say, I can see you because I'm watching you. I know you there. Where are you? And the moment time you begin to speak to your heart, you begin to get empowered. You don't need a counselor to empower you because in North America here, they judge you based on your color. Oh, she's black, so she's aggressive. No. And then when our children go to school, and if it's a boy and he is in school, you can't tell a boy, sit still. Boys have testosterone. So they want to just behave and they just extrovert and they're going to jump around and you judge them because of their complexion and you're not understanding. That's why when teachers go to teachers college, they're not for you, they're for the books. When the police go to police academy, he did not go for you, he go to arrest you. When a judge sit on the bench, he's not here for you, he's just to judge your situation. Until you go through it, you would never understand what it is to drink a cup of scotch and hot tea and a cup of cold tea at the same time. You have to go through it to understand it. Delbert, I was asking, when is the change? Like, when do we come in now as men to ask those questions? And it's not that they asked it 20 years ago. It's because they just get there. Men grow tall, but their mentality slow them down. This is how they fight. If they get a broken leg and they have to cut the leg off, he gets shot. Just so the mind take a lot of times to come up with the age. A woman will change at the age of 50. A man will still go on with his foolishness until he get to 70. So you can't really judge him, seeing him as a tall man, but you judge him based on where he is.
Mentally.
Yeah. It's like you are 50-year-old and you're fighting with a 2-year-old child. Don't do this. They're not understanding. I've come to figure this thing out. These people don't understand. So you got to just strengthen you until they get there. Then you can say, well, I thank God you're here now. Welcome home. And you begin to speak to them because age brings reasoning for women. I'm not too sure how fast it brings for men. Some men get it. Some men don't. I'm so sorry.
Some never.
Men are players. Women are players. And until you get to the age of enough is enough with toys and get with your books, the mentality cannot, it just, it is so sad. It's sad. And a woman is groomed from an infant stage. You're going to grow up to be a mother and you will have children and things. It's going to be so nice. And the boys, you're a man. They don't understand. They put their muscles up because they think being a man is strength. But they don't understand it's the maturity. That's why a man is abused from day one.
Psychologically.
When a man is abused from day one, he grew up with that hurt. And that hurt, he hides it inside. Why? Because he had to show his muscles that he is a man. That's why men hurt twice more than ladies.
Amen. All right. So we have Miss Rachel. Again, I want to say to guys, Gem FM always looking for intelligent, intellectual people with a knack to help, to coach, to develop the mindset, to change, and to help people come out from the stigma or was placed on them. Like we had a new terminology here, the prescription that was served to them, to take through life. Unless we realize that we have to see another doctor to get a different prescription, our going about would be the same that they give us from the beginning. But thank God for persons like Rachel who say, no, that prescription ain't working for you. Don't take that prescription. This is get your own prescription now. You come out of the cocoon now and become a beautiful butterfly. Don't get trapped inside. Don't exceed the time that God, have you in that cocoon, get the right information, do the right thing and fly, and I think coach, and we talk about in the beginning that everybody needs a coach. Yeah. The most successful people have a coach. And the question is, why am I not succeeding? You might try to be doing anything the same way over and over until someone comes along and say, hey, I think you need to like Jesus came, casting it on the other side. You've been fishing on that side of the boat for too long, cast on the other side, and there is a lot of fish. So Rachel is one of those coaches that will help persons to get to the point, get to themselves, to get to the awakening, of self-consciousness. So Rachel, I want to talk to my people. How can they get in contact with you in England and Grenada? How they can reach you for help? How can persons reach out to you and associate to be a sort of a mentor for the organization, for the school, and so how can people reach you?
I'm on Facebook. I'm also on Instagram. On Instagram, I am Rachel Charles, and on Facebook, it's my name, Rachel Charles. I work with people on a one-to-one basis. I haven't run workshops in a while, but I will do at probably towards the end of the year, looking at how we're going into how we're rounding up this year and going into the next year. Organization-wise, I currently do stress awareness workshops for organizations, and also how to work with trauma. If you can imagine, I've worked in probation for quite a while. So if you name the offense, I've sat down and I've watched it, and I've sat across the table from people who have committed some of the most horrendous crimes, and you take that all in.
Wow.
And if you have to go through that day after day, you have to learn how to monitor that, because it doesn't mean that just because it hasn't happened to you, if you're reading it and working with those people, you're absorbing that as well. So how do you deal with that trauma? How do you deal with that stress? So I work with organizations and their people in how to be aware of that stress and trauma, and that the stress management techniques as well. So if anybody wants to find me, I am on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. If it's one-to-one, I have a booking link, so you can always go in there and book a session with me just to see if we're compatible. I say I could work with anyone, but I don't always work with everyone. You have to be willing to want to be worked with. I won't work with somebody that I have to drag through, because it means I'm making you do it. You have to be in a situation where you're ready to move and want to do certain things, because you can get to where you're going without a coach. But what I do say is, and they say it's quicker by coach. If you fly, it's quicker if you fly coach. It's quicker, because what I will do is I will hold you accountable. So we will sit down. If it's a one-to-one, we will sit down. I'll go through, what is it you want to do? Where do you see yourself? How are you going to get there? These are your options, and I will hold you accountable to those. And it will be you using the options that you already have in there. All I do is I reach in and I help you draw them out and help you stand firmer on your feet and stand with conviction. So, all those things that you're scared about when it comes to how is this person gonna view me? I help you stand there, and it doesn't matter what they're saying about you with whatever your business venture is that they think you shouldn't do, or whatever it is that you feel you can't do. I help you stand in your power so that you're going forward with your hopes, goals, and dreams, knowing that you're not going to be defeated in terms of other people putting fear into your lives. So all that to say, you can find me on Instagram and Facebook.
Someone is asking here, and they say, Kevin, he says, still waiting for Rachel to start a retreat in Grenada. Is there any plans in the future to have a retreat?
Yes,
in that
definitely.
nature?
Yeah.
So
Definitely.
Kevin, keep your calendar open and to have her. So yeah, looking forward to that. I want to ask you a question because I've seen that happen here, and we have heard it a lot of times. A woman can raise a boy to become a man. And you have two boys, right? That you have sort of trained to a certain level, a certain way. How difficult was it for you to raise those two boys? And what advice would you give to women, single women who are raising two boys or one boy? How do you what kind of advice and how do you deal it? And then what advice would you have to women who in that situation that look, I don't know how to do this. I'm frustrated with these two little boys here. How would I do it? How do you help them?
I would say for me, I was grateful for the background that I had. I think Delbert said earlier that you don't know the backgrounds that people have come from. People come from different families. And I'm going to say this in the nicest way possible. Some people were brought up, some people were dragged up. And
yes, for real.
If you know that you were brought up and you find yourself with somebody who was dragged up, and sometimes it's not their fault that they were dragged up, but they were literally dragged through a hedge backwards, and that's how they go through life on survival mode, and you're trying to make a family with that person. It's just not going to work. And for me, when I found myself in my situation, I had no choice. And I'm thankful for the fact that my parents were not perfect, but I'm thankful for the fact that I wasn't dragged up. And all I knew was that I had two boys who were not going to be statistics. It couldn't happen. It just couldn't happen for me, and it wasn't going to happen for them. I knew that I had two boys who did not have a good role model when it came to who the choice I made as their father. And I knew that whatever they saw happening, I had to make sure that I showed them different. So, some of the things that they heard in the house, the shouting, the swearing, some of the things that was taking place, some of the behavior that they saw, I knew that I had to keep instilling that, yes, you're seeing this, but this is not normal behavior. Look at your uncle, look at this person, look at this friend that I have, as examples of what good is. And what you're seeing over here, I ain't bad talking him, but that is your father, but that is not how you're supposed to, this is not the proper example. And like I said, I just had no choice. And I'm grateful, I'm blessed. The older one is going to be 19 in August. The younger one just turned 16 last week, actually, last Tuesday. And I've never had any problems so far. So let me not even say so far, I've never had any problems. And every day I'm complimented with the boys are brilliant and that kind of thing. And I just put it down to just having zero choice but to do the best as somebody. I was not going to be a statistic as a so-called single mother, whatever. I happened to be in that situation. It was not one that I chose, and I knew that they were not going to end up in the statistics as well.
Great. Wow.
So I would say, because you said for single mothers, what would I say as well, is don't fall into the stigma. There is this, and I must say, Facebook is a dangerous place because you have everybody who spouts their opinion about what they think, and there's so much, is it backlash? I can't think of the word, but there's so much that comes, a single mother this, single mother that, and it's like the nuances of what it takes to be a single mother. It's like you just have no clue. All you see is a woman with children, and there's the whole stigma and stereotype around it. And all I would say if you are a mother and you are in that position, just don't buy into it. Don't fall into it. Do not label yourself. Don't take it as a label, because as far as I was concerned, yes, I say here that I'm a single mother. I was just a mom. I was just doing what a mom needed to do. So if they want to put on whatever the label was, you can put whatever label it is. I'm not taking your prescription. I'm doing what I need to do for mine. And all you're going to do is just watch and see. You know,
Right,
I'm not going to fall into whatever you think the stereotype is, because when you say, oh, single mothers, whatever, I could sit back and say, no, they don't, because, you know, some will, some won't.
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm coming down to the end. I know, Delbert, we have 10 minutes. So go ahead. Any questions from you, Delbert? Anything?
So earlier on, you spoke about the importance of us men. I don't know if the correct word is calling out our friends or associates if we find out that they're in an abusive relationship and they're the one sort of causing the problem or perpetuating the violence. And so if I have a friend who worked together, or we played sports together, or any other thing, and I was struggling, it'd be perfectly normal for him to reach out to me to help me improve my skills. Okay, perfectly normal for him to tell me, hey, you know, I think you can do better at work. Here are a few things that you can do to improve your level of productivity. But we find it enormously difficult when that issue is of a personal nature. I want you to speak a little bit more about that, how really, really, really important it is for us as men. And the best word I can come out with is to call out our friends when we find that they are engaging in that pattern of behavior. Because if we do it more, we would have less of that kind of violence in the home. And it may even sometimes you may end up losing that friendship or that however you define that relationship. But in the end, if that person has any kind of self-awareness about themselves, they will eventually realize that what you were trying to do was to actually help them. But how do you get to us men to let us know that that is okay, and not just okay, but it's actually part of our responsibility as friends, that it helps improve our own humanity? How do you get to us? Because sometimes, you know, I didn't want to listen to my parents when I was 10, 12 years old. So now I'm 30, 40, 50 years old. I'm in my house. I'm doing whatever I feel works for me. And you're trying to tell me that this is not working, or I don't know what I'm doing, or I need to grow up and be a better man. And we'll be very, very, very resistant to that. How do you get through to men who have that kind of negative mindset?
I think you've said it right there, that you're 30, 40, 50, don't really want to listen to anyone. And to be fair, a lot of men just do not want to listen to women. And so I think that responsibility really needs to come down to men, because there are a lot of men who can see what's happening. What is it that stops men from calling out their friends? So I'm not sitting in a barbershop all the time with the same people who are doing things they shouldn't be doing in those relationships. So I don't even have access to a lot of those men. I can speak to women and I can speak in general, but I think we need more male voices as well to speak to other men to say this is unacceptable. So the same way that if you had a male friend who you knew was, I don't know, breaking into cars or stealing, you know, like is it the catalytic converters and that kind of stuff? If you knew
you have that problem in England too, eh?
So if you knew you had a friend that was doing that, what would you do? Would you be like, listen?
Only a woman involved in probation would know about
those things. Thinking like, another kind of problem, a US problem. This is an English problem as well.
It's a US problem.
I gotta watch my car. Every time I start my car in the morning, I gotta make sure there's smoke from it and that's a loud noise. Right in the yard, they come and tell you stuff.
Yeah. I came out one morning and my wing mirror was gone. So, but that's the thing. If you knew you had a friend And that's what he was doing. He was breaking into people's cars and he was doing that kind of thing. I think men would say, what are you doing? This
Mhm.
isn't the way to live. So if you know you have a friend who embarrasses his wife in public, is known to put his hands on her, who's known to be physical, who is not behaving the way that a man should be, why is he still your mate and your friend? And why are you worried about losing this person as a friend? Would you be able to call the police on this person? And if you cannot do that, my question would be why?
Mm.
Because, you know, how much of, I don't know if it's some kind of solidarity that men feel they have with others, that means that they will stand by, and it doesn't matter whether it's a woman or whatever, is stand by and look at one human being treat another human being with disrespect or violence and not say anything.
Misplaced machismo.
It is
Wow.
so. I want to step in here for a minute. For a man to approach another man and tell him that he's hurting his wife or his girlfriend, it's difficult. I'll tell you why it's difficult. A man could see his buddy come to him with his mouth dirty, his eyes dirty, and keep the conversation, and it's no problem. Until men wake up and stop hiding, because the one that who really hurts, they don't go around much men. They go around a lot of ladies. So they tend to have ladies for their friend and not men, because another man is going to approach him and say, man, what you doing? It's wrong. So what men do, they mask their identity and they go around women. And then when other men see them, they say, oh, is that your wife? And they kind of shying to say, no, it's not my wife. Yes, it's my wife. So they go around a lot of ladies just to hide their own self. And they're not man enough to stand up and say, I am hurting my wife and it's time for me to stop hurting her. Other men is going to sit and they're going to say, so the woman that you're with is not your wife? You mean you have a wife? So they're so scared of being identified. So they hide themselves in the crowd.
Mm.
And
Just
even
avoid
with that,
another
because
man from, just to avoid another man from confronting them, they hide. They mask their whole thing.
Hide in plain sight.
Yeah.
Yeah. So women accommodate them because they come charming, and you know, the man would know, see the child, tell him, hey, pull up your pants, man, you can't be doing this. You know what I mean? They don't want the confrontation, they want the correction, because that's the comfort zone, but the woman accommodates it. And hence, yes,
those men, there is a name for those men.
They will bring news to that woman and say, oh, you know, my wife was this or my wife was that. But he's only telling her what she needs to hear to comfort her. So you hold her now at bay. If I tell her that I love her, if I groom her good, so he's going on to the second one now and he's trying to groom, but he don't know that everybody is seeing him in plain sight, is seeing you. When you're grooming the other one, it's just a matter of time before the box opens.
Rachel, you know what I'm saying?
No, I was just saying that there's a name for that as well. So these men that are going around and they're, you know, they might have their wife, but then they're going to be grooming these other women. They're called the charm syndrome man.
Yeah.
Because that's what they do. They go around and they're charming. Some of these men who are abusive can be the nicest men you ever met. If you met my son's dad, you would think he is the nicest guy ever. But it's Jekyll and Hyde behind closed doors. It is literally demon imprint.
Yeah.
So you know, but even that, but that's another side of the abuse as well, because even if they're not approaching them and saying you're treating your wife in a certain way, if you know that this man has a wife, but it's like, okay, you come in this party and you're with this person, but I see you there having lunch with another person as well. It's those little things that men don't get called out on as well. Because it's like they I don't know, it's probably something that stems from childhood, where boys are seen to be that kind of incorrigible thing, you know. It's like, oh, they're just naughty, they're just playing around, you know, they're just being boys. And as they grow up, they're just never held to account to say that this is not how you behave. Girls from a young age are told, you know, behave in a certain way, sit in a certain way, keep your legs in a certain way, do this, do that. Boys are just left.
Mhm.
And so they're never held to
Yeah.
account.
Never.
And even if, I don't know, maybe it is difficult for men to do it as well, because even if you do hold your friend to account, it's just going to be, I don't know, maybe in a jokey manner. Don't do that, that kind of thing. It's never a serious thing to
Mhm.
say, this is not how you treat somebody. Think of, you've got kids, how they're looking at you. What's the impact going to be? You're hurting the person that you're with, and because a lot of the pain that is being inflicted is not violent, there's no black eyes and bruises, they don't think about the emotional damage that is being
Yep.
inflicted on the other person. And then even when they do come out of the relationship, a lot of the women are damaged and taking that hurt and going into another relationship with it as well.
Mhm.
It just
Wow.
perpetuates the cycle.
So I had a situation many years ago where I called out a friend, and maybe it's just, one, the way I was raised. When I hear the situation, I get a little bit emotional, because then I'm glad I was able, before my parents passed away, to tell them, to show my appreciation for what a great job they did. And I always say, if I had even just listened to everything that they said, I would be so much of a better person. But it was a number of years ago, and I called out a friend on who was involved in a domestic violence situation, and he turned it around on me, and he said, he accused me of wanting to be with his partner. So I was taken back, and for a millisecond I had to say, oh damn, I should not have brought that up, because I don't want to deal with this. I'm not interested in your wife. I'm just trying to reach out because she reached out to me, and she know we're good friends. And I backed off. I completely backed off. And what was funny, well, not really funny, but what was tragic, because a couple months down the road, he got arrested.
Mm.
And I had to go do his bail. I was the one that he trusted at that point in time to reach out and said, yes.
And was he arrested for the same thing?
He was arrested for domestic violence. And
you should have leave him there for 2 more nights. I'm just saying.
So he reached out, and I went, and I told him, listen, I'm going to do this on one condition, that we're going to sit down and talk about it, So it almost had to be tragic before he learned his lesson. And that is so how do we handle this? The other thing is that earlier on you spoke about self-love, right? And whether or not we, and probably in particular women, whether or not they possess that. But I know successful professional women who are doing great things with their children, on their job, in whatever other social settings that they may be involved in, but their relationship is violence infused.
They had low self-esteem.
I don't know. I think it's more complicated than that. How do we
Abuse doesn't distinguish. Abuse doesn't distinguish, and you have to, I would say, you don't look at who the victim is. You need to look at who the perpetrator is. There are lawyers, doctors, high-flying professionals who are judges, who are in abusive relationship. The status that you have in terms of your career or how many books you've read doesn't matter. If you come up against somebody who is manipulative, who has systematically worked to break down your self-esteem, you can be the best at your job, but in terms of how they've made you feel about yourself, whether they made you feel like you could never get anybody because I'm the only one that's here for you, look, they've isolated you from your family so you have nobody to turn to, you could fall prey to somebody who is an abuser. And remember, they don't come into your relationship. So, you're saying somebody who's a professional. So let's take someone who's a doctor or somebody who's great in their profession. They don't come into your life and say, right, I'm now, don't wear this, don't eat that, you're not allowed to go out with your friends. I don't want you seeing your family. They do it. It's literally
my God,
stealth
it's
mode.
sweet
They're
when they
under
come
the
in.
radar. They come in under the guise of, you're so beautiful. But I
Yeah.
really like when you wear the dress like this. And what they're doing is they're slowly trying to cover you up and make you to dress a certain way, because I like seeing you in that dress. And it probably is the most unflattering dress ever on you. But he doesn't want anybody to see you as desirable, because he just wants to keep you, for himself, or dull your shine. And slowly, oh no, I'm not going to go to your family thing, because your family jealous of you, really. Why are you going to this thing? They don't really like you. Your sister always jealous. I'll show your sister want me instead. It's stealth mode. They do these things slowly and surely. And what that does is they manipulate your mind. So slowly by surely, you're isolated from friends. You're not going out with the girls on a Friday night anymore. You're not going to family events. You're no longer dressing the way you're running to come home or whatever. You're fixing dinner because it has to be in a certain way, or a certain temperature, or a certain whatever. You don't even realize you're in it until you think for yourself years down the line, like, this isn't right, but this feels weird. But he's doing it because he loves me, because he's told me he loves me. They never come out right off the back telling you. So it doesn't matter, which job you're in or how much. It's a slow, it's like a slow drip. What's the words? Torture.
Torture, yeah.
That you don't even realize you're in it until you're deep. You're deep in it. It's kind of like, the analogy that they use of crabs, like if you put them in and you slowly turn the fire up. Apparently it's not really true that they don't realize they're cooking until it's too late and the water's boiling. But that's how it is. You're in it, and they do everything under the guise of love, which is why you will hear women say, I don't hear it as much now, but we have heard the thing, he beats me because he loves me. And it's not because he came into the relationship and started beating her. It's because he has manipulated her in such a way that when he has come down on her and said certain things, it's because he's already made her think that he has her back. That I need you to do certain things for me because I love you. And because you haven't done it now, you made me hit you. That's how it starts, and that's how it progresses.
Oh,
So yeah, so
they tell you, oh, your family is not good, man. They're stressing you out, and then they move you out from close people, and they isolate you. This area, the for us is quieter. And you just go in because it's the way they talk, the way they have the smoothness about them, this cunning way. And you're thinking, oh my God, they're looking out for my best interest, and not knowing in a pot with fire underneath you.
What advice you would give to fathers? So this is a topic that's very, very important to me, because I have a daughter, an only child, and she's very aggressive.
Aggressive or assertive?
No, she's aggressive. A combination of both.
Okay.
She's a combination of her grandmother and myself, because my mom was a very, very aggressive, very assertive, person. And so I worry about this topic because I worry about how she may be treated in a relationship down the road.
I want you to see her as assertive and not aggressive, because as a man, when you use the word aggressive, you look at her in the light of very like trying to attack people, but she could be assertive and be powerful in her assertiveness, that she don't take nonsense.
I agree, but
Yeah.
my daughter is aggressive. I always say that she's sufficiently aggressive, and then we probably have to redefine what that word means, right?
Because I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
yeah,
how did she
yeah.
get there?
Yeah.
Because
Huh?
you had her from babe in arms. So how did she get there?
It's in the genes. I'm sorry.
So you need to speak with her. How old is she now?
She's 19.
Okay. But you need to look at how she's harnessing that, because it's probably not a bad thing. It's just how it's used.
Yeah.
No, I agree. It's not a bad thing because she is the person who would so there was an incident. She was in junior high school actually at the time. Maybe about 12 years old. And there was a situation in her school where somebody was bullying one of her friends who was probably a little overweight. And she had complained to the teacher about it, and they did not handle it correctly. So she wrote the Commissioner of Education in the state of New Jersey about it.
Your daughter,
Yes,
I love her already. Go on.
Oh yeah.
she went straight to the top. So that triggers an investigation of the school. Okay. The parents have to come in for a sit down. I'd never been called in to discuss anything about my daughter before in school. I was part of the PTA, so I knew what was going on. 11 o'clock in the morning, I get a call, you need to come to the school immediately. And light bulbs went out in my head. Is she hurt or anything? And I got there, and the principal, who loved her now, is mad at her. She should have come to me. And Tally's like, I told
They've
the
already
principal,
complained.
I told the teacher, I told the assistant principal, you guys did nothing about it. And she's holding her ground. She is not giving an inch. And I'm looking at her and I'm seeing my mom. She's not giving an inch, But the principal is upset, obviously, because now a whole report has to be written. The school goes on a sort of 30-day supervision where they send in somebody from the state agency to monitor what's going on in the school. And so that's how that has been her way. And I even take it back further. I remember when she was about 4 or 5 years old, we went to I think it was a baby shower. And she was there with her cousins and they were playing. And then there was this girl who was slightly bigger than them, but probably the same age. And she was throwing her weight around. And she had done something to my daughter's cousin, her aunt's daughter. And Tally she's the smallest in her group, always the smallest. Tally went out, stuck her hand in the cake with all the frosting, and she just walked up to this girl and wiped it on her face and her dress and said, "Don't mess with my cousin." Okay. And I didn't know what to do. I just did not know what to do, because at home, we did not have that. We had a really, really good family structure, But so I didn't know where this was coming from. So, I think she's well adjusted, very smart, but that, the day Tally graduated from high school, we were driving back from Virginia, and on the way up, her and her mom, we were having this conversation with her as she's getting ready to go into college. And everything wherever there was a disagreement, because we always encourage her to speak her mind, she would not give me an inch. She had an answer for everything. If she disagreed with me, she would say, "Dad, you're wrong." And I looked over at her mom, and she just smiled at me, and she said, "Oh, yeah, you made yourself." But I worry about how that style is going to benefit her down the road. I think in the workplace, it would be fine, but I don't know how that would manifest in her personal life. What kind of advice you would give to fathers like me? Because there's nothing in the world that I worry more about than my daughter.
She's a born leader and she's very assertive. You have nothing to be afraid of.
Hmm.
Is her name Tally? I am not worried about her at all.
Period.
And if those things, like you said, they will serve her in work, the same kind of people she's going to find in work is the same kind of people you find in relationships. I am worried there's 7 billion people in this world. 3.4 are women, 3.7 are male. She will find someone who will match that energy in a good way, that she'll be able to grow as well. And you know what that stood out for me in those 2 stories that you said is the fact that she has no problem standing up for other people. The friend in school was being bullied because of her weight. The other cousin was being bullied at the birthday party. And she was like, oh, I'm not taking that. I'm going to sort it out. And you do need to take aggressive out and put...
Yeah, she's not aggressive.
She's not aggressive. She's not aggressive. Aggressive in the school would have been, my friend is being bullied. I'm going to go over there and punch the other person in the face. She wrote a letter and went right to the top. And the only reason why the school was sitting there, the principal was sitting there squirming, is because they knew they should have dealt with it and didn't. And then now your daughter has opened them up to scrutiny, which they didn't want. And they should, if they had dealt with it earlier, they wouldn't have been there. So let your daughter continue.
By the way, her junior high school principal, I mean, she was going to go to private school anyway, but her junior high school principal continued to be so impressed with her that she got her a scholarship to her alma mater, which was 6 hours away from her house. So she had to, and then when she graduated junior high school, you know, they write this thing on your graduating document, whatever. And she wrote, if I went to sleep and woke up in 20 years or 25 years, and this child was president of the United States, I would not be surprised.
And you could, and they would never say that about somebody who was aggressive.
Yeah. I still worry about her. I worry about her.
She's good.
She's good. She's good.
And the only reason why you turned and looked at her mom is because you knew she was right. She's good.
Yeah.
Exactly. All right.
Raise our hands to a good man. You're a good father. You want
Amen to that.
Represent.
Take your licks when she tell you you're wrong. Take your licks.
That comes every day. That comes every day. You know, she does not, you know, and when she gets to that point where we at it, she goes, Dad, I want you to understand something. This is a new millennium. It simply does not work. Simply does not work that way. She said, or she would tell me, this is not Grenada, okay? Just remember. I mean, she has given me so much joy. I remember it was 2011. We were in Grenada. I was at a function where the Prime Minister and other folks were, and I was introducing her around. So when I told her, I said, this is the Prime Minister, and she goes, what's the Prime Minister? I said, oh, that's like the president. And I said, oh, okay. She looked him up, looked him down, and she goes, Dad, you guys can do better than this. This man is not president material. Listen, at that time, I just hope and prayed and wished that the earth just opened up and swallowed me, because I know that they're thinking that is something that she heard from me, and we had never had that conversation. I was so embarrassed and proud at the same time because I knew she was correct.
One love. Okay, guys, we got a commercial break and we come back with closing. All right, on the table. So let me take a commercial break and come back. Oh my word. What did I do wrong? Oh boy, I did something wrong. Let me see. No, it's right. There's nothing falling.
It's on now, so you're right.
Okay. You hearing it? Okay. All right. Text. Oh boy. Volume. Okay, so we're not getting the volume there, so I don't know what's happening. It's Spice Out Flavors, great energy. Check them out. And I don't know why it's not playing this morning. Great energy. I don't know why. Our lovely sister's product is not being played now. I don't know what happened. It always has a technical difficulty somewhere, somehow. I don't know why. Okay. All right, folks. My apologies for that, but I'm hoping that it would be able to play the next time. Okay. But I don't know what happened here for your family. All right. So 28. Yeah, he's on. So he's up. All right. So I can't figure out. All right. So let me switch back to my I know for what, guys, check out Ola's Kitchen. That is 476 Toronto. And also the Kirsty's Cookies Pastry Delight in Grenville and Benjamin Street. Check them out and get yourself some goodies to go by. All right. I have my headpiece gone out. I don't know what happened here. Oh, my headpiece is I don't hear myself.
No, I think because the commercial is still on, John.
Yeah, it's gone out already. Yeah, so my folks may have even hear me. Okay. All right. I'm going to hear myself.
I think your audio is out, John.
Hello.
Yeah, your audio is in and out.
Are you hearing me now?
You're coming in and out.
Always give this trouble sometime. Are we better now?
Yes, you are.
Okay. So I don't know what Murphy laws always coming and interrupting good stuff. Yeah. So we're here. Let me see something now then. Let me see if I could get I don't know why. Sometimes, if Murphy just happened to just be doing her own thing sometimes, his own thing, their own thing, when you think you have everything nailed down and then Murphy just show up and, yeah, let me see if Murphy go away. Yes.
Mami oh mama, I say for from the corner. Mami oh mama, they got a green wonder. I say flavor, best I say the best I say the best I say. I like taste and spicy, best I say the best I say the best I say. Garlic oil and vegan pesto, I telling you that's the way to go. Lots of fun when you swimming, flavor that will have your body. Strictly organic, for it healthy. That will make your food so tasty. Vitamin D that's human iron. Number one chicken on the island. Spice Flavors. Please contact us at 347-697-4020.
Yes, that was Spice Flavors.
Your volume's gone.
He's gone because the ad is still up. So yeah. It's not that he come on here to the Facebook page.
We're back, black and beautiful. All right, Delbert, closing remarks on your end.
Listen,
John, you have to switch back because it
looks switch already. Yeah, just a delay on the other side. Yeah. Go ahead, Delbert. Yeah.
This was a delight. I don't know what happened. It seems like every guest that we have on have come on since 2023, everyone is better and more resourceful than it. This was a delightful morning. Rachel, thanks for coming on. Don't be a stranger. The kind of things that you espouse this morning, it is so badly, they are so badly needed in our community first as people who live in the diaspora, because sometimes we tend to pick on our folks back in Grenada, but many of us in the diaspora suffer from these same problems. And because we are here, we're either too proud to ask for help or to realize that we may need that kind of professional guidance and assistance. So I think it was just so powerful, you know. And I very much like the fact that you said that you will be doing, hopefully be doing some sessions in Grenada. And this is not just about what you do is just not just about, you know, men and women and relationship. This is things that would help our people even in business, because if you are coming, if you're better prepared, okay, if your home situation is an utopian flavor, so to speak, you are far more productive, you're far more congenial at work, and that obviously results in greater productivity, whether you work for yourself or whether you're working for someone else or a big corporation. So I am really happy to, I know we follow each other on Facebook, and I'm really, really happy to meet you in this virtual space. And don't be a stranger. Come back anytime, please. You know, these are the kind of conversation that we want to have, because we really want to be part of how do we reorientate the way, you know, our people think. And I'm always particularly happy when a guest can come on and I actually leave learning things. I feel better prepared to deal with my own life and to be able to impact that knowledge and wisdom that I may have gained from that session to a friend or somebody who I may work with or some colleague in different fashion. So thank you for coming on, and I hope you have a fantastic weekend in Kent, you know?
Thank you.
So, Pastor Gilbert, I see Pastor and you come out this morning. I'm so grateful about it. I know it's in there, you know, but you're hiding it. It came out today. I really say it.
I text you.
I'm fighting off the parental influences.
All right, Tex, closing remarks on you, Tex.
I'm so happy to sit here, and it's a thing that I was fighting about. Though the calling is there, I'm fighting not to be certified. And Rachel, you really touched my heart today, and I will give into certification. I will. Yes, I surrender. I will do it.
Imagine she hasn't gone to the mirror yet. You know, yeah. She hasn't been to the mirror. I think you have lifted up a standard here this morning.
Yeah, I really, because I hear people talk about me in Grenada, and I hear people talk about me here, but my laziness is going back and sit down there to be certified just to say what I'm saying. So I need to have a paper because I was not, what I'm doing and saying here, I've never been to school for it. It's the Lord himself that prepared me for this forum. If I had to do application, John would have said, who she thinks she is? That would never happen. But I give God thanks for calling me here. And because he called me, he empowered me in every niche that he wants me to speak about. I can just go into it fluent, but now I give up. So Lord, I'm stop fighting. I'm gonna go and get certified.
All right. So next time Rachel back here, we have not celebration ice cream and cake.
Yes.
You know when you're ready. You know when you're ready. And for some people, they don't need the certificate. For some people, you know, and they do what they do. And for some people, they need that stamp with the certificate to say, and you will know. So just follow what your heart tells you.
Yeah.
If it's telling you.
Michelle, your closing remarks. The lady of the hour.
Thank you very much for having me here. I wasn't too sure what to expect when I came on the show, and it's been an absolute delight. The conversation flowed. There's so many topics that we went into that I didn't even expect we were going to, but it's been a really nice, refreshing couple of hours to just hear everybody's viewpoints. Also, not just my own. There's things that I've picked up as well. And, you know, every day, the only time you stop learning is when you die. So it's been a really good day for me as well. Delbert, I just wanted to come back on one thing that you said with your friend when, you know, and sometimes I know for men, it's that thing where they will come back and say, oh, you're after my wife. He knew you didn't want his wife. And that's the whole reason why he got you to get him out of that situation, because he knew that in all of his friends, you were the only one who was right with, who was straight with him, who he could trust. So as a man, I would say continue doing that. We need more men who will be and who will have that strength to call out other men. And it's as simple as that. Calling out is not holding somebody against a wall and saying, this is what you're doing. It's literally having that conversation to say, listen, what you're doing ain't right. And sometimes it feels like it might go into one ear and out the other, but the fact that it's gone in, they can't change the fact that they've heard it, and it's going to change something in there. So, continue doing that. And yeah, we need more people. We need more people like you, and also your daughter. Give her a big hug for me, because yeah. But yeah, thank you very much for having me on, John. It's been a really great session. Thank you.
Great. All right. So first of all, let me apologize for keeping you a little longer than I promised to keep you. The thing about Jemma, when we come here we don't have a 5-minute show. We have a full 2-hour show, and you know, when the guests get comfortable, they ask, "Can you pass me some tea?" You know, and they sit down and relax. And you know, when the guests go to get some tea, you know, they aim to the show, right?
Rachel, you're welcome on a Wednesday night program.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. And it's lovely meeting you as well, Tex. I think, you are my twin. I could see the link, and I was just like, yeah, she gets it.
This is like the I don't know, the baptismal, you know, because our Saturday night show sometimes goes on for 4 hours, you know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You know, it's about this, and people never complain, say it should go too long. They say, oh, that was a real good show. And when they say you're going, like people say, man, if you finish already, you know, but it's not about Gem FM. What we tried to do, I can remember we had Miss Nayak here, and you know, every other station who brought her on is 10 minutes. And she was trying to push everything in that 10 minutes to get the message across. So when she was here, and she said, how long are you here for? I said, probably an hour. She said, okay. And then we've been on the show for 4 hours. And she, you know, she checked people and said, and she needs some coffee. You know what I mean? And she gone and she just relaxed. And the relaxation it gave her time to really sell herself, you know, to focus on her and to give her the opportunity to express herself so people could know who she is, what she does, and be able to better relate to her. Because in a 15 minutes or 10 minutes in a regular radio station, it's not enough time to tell people what you do, you know? So what we want to do is to give our guests enough time to express themselves, to sell themselves, so the world will know who they are after they leave Gem FM. And we have a new company in Grenada called The Work. The world will know you, by Tricia Grant Lewis and Mexi the Messenger. These two people are called the Greater Power Couple. She's running for Miss Grenada now in the Elegant Mothers pageant in May. And we're asking people to go to our page and like it and love it and, you know, share it all around. So she come out of Grenada with the crown, right? But I'm saying all of this to say that Rachel has been here this morning, guys, from England. She took time off to be here. She could have been anywhere else, and she accepted our invitation to be on Gem FM this morning. And we really do appreciate you You know, we become, you get this type of approval to be here. If there's anything you want to share with us, you know, we'll be more than happy to have you back here. And I'll keep on looking at the page because I'm a search to the web for positive people, you know, and people who want to make a difference, who are making a difference. And that's why I found you and I pulled and I said, let me call her up and ask her to be. And then when she responded, she said, oh, I've just seen this, right? and then I forgot, I literally did forget that I sent an invitation to her. Right? I said, remember what again? And then we had this short conversation. I said, okay, fine, I'm gonna go. So, you know, sometimes I send invitation out to people and some people never respond, you know? And probably some people going to investigate who is JMFM, what is JMFM, before you come on JMFM, I don't know what is people about and all that stuff like that, you know? So when those accept the invitation, they come on, we want to make sure that when give them the time to speak their truth, to speak to us, to tell us, to educate us, to be liberated, you know? And when it's a freedom coach, I was sold on that, just that whole idea of freedom coach, you know what I mean? Telling people to be free, they could be free, and not being bogged down by the circumstances, not taking the prescription that was served to them, you know, and you know, like I said before, Les Brown said, don't let nobody opinion of you become your reality. But I can't change around, don't let nobody negative opinion of you become your reality, you know? So be yourself. And I really want to thank you, Rachel. I can't thank you enough for being here. I want to say God bless you and make you a blessing. Wherever you put your foot down, claim that as yours. You know, everything in your territory. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, all those our listeners this morning who have contributed and make today a blessed and productive day, and those of you who have learned from this session this morning, and a lot of the men out there there was a lot of men today. If you go back and read the chat, they have been contributing, you know, and not very often we have men contributing so much in our shows. So again, something you have said, you have shared it today, Michelle, have touched and spark the conversation out in the chat room. So all the men who have contributed and ladies as well, thank you guys so much for being here with us. Sonia Martins, Scott, Kevin, you know, and Mary, Lovable, Angel, and Staron, Barry. God bless you guys. Thank you. Come back again. We're back here tonight with Friends of the Earth, talking about the Earth and how the whole organization and what is going on, the structure and stuff like that. With Mr. Joseph Antoine, we're back here tonight at 8:30 p.m. tonight. So we're hoping that you guys come back and join us tonight. We have a great conversation tonight again with Mr. Joseph Antoine and others. Deborah will be back with us, and Margaret Francis will be back with us tonight. So I tell Margaret come on this morning, but I pray she was busy. So God bless you guys. Have a wonderful afternoon. And I'm looking forward to see you tonight, Deborah. Class start at 8:30 tonight, but don't be late.
No, I'm always late. I'm always late. All right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Wonderful.
Blessings.
Bye.
Blessings. Okay.
Rachel, I'll call you. I'll give you a call.
Yeah, no worries.
All right. Blessings. Caribbean Connections, guys, every Saturday morning, right here on Gem FM. Join us with all the Caribbean vibes going on Gem FM. So this is Merchant Caribbean Connections. Text, thank you.
Let's have a party.
Good afternoon, Mary Ramsey, Becky, Goodyear, Doris Maureen Charles.
Region together in one big scratch down fiesta.
Belfon, Nikki, good morning, dear. Good afternoon.
I say we jamming to the songs of the Caribbean. We grooving to calypso and silver.
Jovita Kalis, good afternoon. Sonia Martlin Scott.
This jam will be ivory.
Veronica Irvin.
It's one love, so
good afternoon, folks. Don't forget to check us out on the web at www.gemfm.ca. We are live 24 hours.
Say we jamming to the songs of the Caribbean. We grooving to calypso.
And to all our silent listeners, good afternoon to you. And don't forget, folks, to check out Honest Kitchen, 477 Oakwood Avenue. Go get the oil down today. The curry, the stews, the rice and peas, and all the goodies. Not forgetting Crystal Pastry Delight and Benjamin Street in Grenville. Go check them out this afternoon. If you want to get your business advertised, just check us out. Send us a note at genesismagazine@rogers.com or jimfm@gmail.com. Also, we are looking to hire some advertising sales representative.
Together,
So forward us your CVs
so should
at gemfm.ca at rogers.com.
people.
Genesis Magazine, that is, at rogers.com.
So let us move on without hesitation.
Join Tex Warren every morning from 8 o'clock until 10. Pastor Daphne Gabriel, 10:30 to 11:30, Monday to Wednesdays and Fridays.
Caribbean, we grooving to calypso and silver.
Raphael Paul coming up at 3 p.m. Message to the grassroots. You don't want to miss that one. Right on the Sunset City St. Max. And tonight at 8:30 p.m. Talking Point with Gem FM. With the Sheriff, Rebel Baptist, Margaret, Francis, Dave Antoine, and Mothers. Wednesday nights, 8 p.m. Tex Warren, Hot to Hot. Monday to Friday, 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. Intimacy in worship. Tuesday night, developing intimacy in marriage. Right here on Gem FM at 8:30 p.m. until 10 o'clock. Discussing marriage, domestic violence in marriage.
The venue is Tobago, and it's going to be a grand show. A true Caribbean mix up. When we start to jam,
Good afternoon,
we go.
Alison Martlin Scott. Martlin, good afternoon to you. My brother from a different mother. Stay tuned, guys. Come up at 3 p.m. The man himself, Raphael Paul Pablo,
To the song,
out of Sunset City St. Max, would be here
grooving to
with message to the grassroots. Special guest, Carlos. BEM will be here. Pecos. Yes, man. Pecos will be here. Big shout out to Mr. Raphael Paul. Kushnaka Joseph, good afternoon to you. And to all the folks in the Republic of Guam. All the folks in Grenville, good afternoon to you. Labe, good afternoon. Victoria Statez. The folks in Rose Hill, good afternoon. River Sally, Paradise, New York, Toronto, good afternoon. St. David's, St. George's, St. John's, good afternoon. Carriacou and Pirimatic, good afternoon to you. England, good afternoon, good night, good afternoon, good evening. Yeah. I get a special thanks to my guest, Rachel Charles from Sunset City St. Marks, residing in Kent, in the United Kingdom.
Father, we just give you thanks and praise for all the years, months, weeks, and days you have guided us.
Yes, I'm my Mexi the messenger.
Hello.
Out of Greater Kaiko and Petty Martinique. Check this one out.
So he will give it life, and you must this life, then just this dance for the life, cause everything that's carry inside, as the shield of life, everything's alright, so let's go. Celebrate life, celebrate life, living, that's not living. No matter what my new brother, no matter what my new sister living, that's not living. Father, we give it up for that you have done. Just that you had done. That we have done. Father, we give you praises from this song. So we give it life, and you have this life. Just give thanks for life, cause everything's alright. Just carry your side, as the shield of life, everything's alright. So let's celebrating life, celebrating life, living. No matter what kind you brother, no matter what kind you sister living. Father, we give you the precious return. Sometimes it was rough, but it made us strong. But the best we give you up overcome. So now we give you praises as life goes on. I know my favorite life, that's my best life, that is thanks for life, and everything. That's by my side, I push it that life, and everything's alright, so let's go. Celebrating life, celebrating life, living, if that's not living. No matter what my new brother, no matter what my new sister living, if that's not living.
You know, my Mexi the messenger. Song called Wake Up My People.
Wake up, my people. Open your heart. Stop living this life so carelessly. Stop living blind. Really, really, totally, if we see there's one that's not far. Should do it till they start. So stop shy. Now wake up, now wake up, now wake up, my people. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up. It's a motor to this scene. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up. Too long we've been living in bondage mentally. Change from our hands are nothing. Tell us we free. Yeah, they want to control our life, our destiny. But do my best to get it, yeah. Do my best to see you free. So wake up, wake up, wake up, my people. Wake up, my people. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up, my people. Listen, wake up, now wake up, my people. Oh yeah. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up, my people. Let us feed them from the wise of the shall reveal unto the days and the suffering. What is leading from the wise of the shall reveal unto the wake wake up, now wake up, now wake up, now wake up, my people. Wake up and live. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up, my people. Future must always what they say. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up, my people. Oh yeah. Wake up, now wake up, now wake up, my people. Wake up, my people. Open your heart. Living this life so carelessly. Stop leaving time. Really, only if we see there's no wonders outside. Really, start from moving. Sun stop shine. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. Well, I still have John Lee, you know. Hey, Joe and Don. Boy, he's high. High. Whoa, whoa. Love and play. Life forevermore. If Jah and die, you shall be chopped down. Love Jah and play. Life forevermore. And die, you shall be chopped off. Yeah. We'll be on to the shepherd that feed my sheep astray. So far astray. All I know, we got to pay. Someday, to those whom I want to see their children grow. Oh. All I know, we got to stay under. Below. On to those evil doers. For I know there is no good in our heart. But I say, love Jah and play. Love Jah and live. Forevermore. Jah and die, you shall be chopped off. Chopped off. And play, and live forevermore. Oh, if Jah and die, you shall be chopped off. Chopped off, yeah. Living this life, you got to be strong. So strong. To overcome temptations. Every day. Jah no want no gun, no diamonds, no pearls. A clean heart and good living well on earth. So you see, so keep it clean, remember to praise Jah. For it's my shelter and my shield. Remember I said, and play, Jah and live, life forevermore. Oh, if Jah and die, you shall be chopped off. Chopped off. Love Jah and play, Jah and live, life forevermore. If Jah and die, you shall be chopped off. Chopped off, yeah. Out while you could good-hearted people. Just keep the faith and life will go on. Remember to pray. Don't let the weak ones get you down. No. Remember I say you got to be strong. So strong. So come on now and give Jah praises. That's what he needs. All the good things he had done. Remember I say, love Jah and live. Love Jah and live. Life forevermore. Oh, if Jah and die, you shall be chopped off. Chopped off. Love Jah and live. Love Jah and live. Life forevermore. Oh, if and die, you shall be chapter. We'll be on the shepherd that feed my sheep astray. So finally, all they got to pay. In this life that we live in.
Yes, that was the man Ricky Thomas out of Hamilton, St. George, St. Patrick's. This one called Tell Me Yes. The man stirred.
If I gave you this water,
Would you your local music on Gem FM?
if I told you my secret, would you tell them I'm your man? Now that you know my secret, who's against me if you can?
All the clothes I see being displayed here, the fashion is made by Miss Tracy Grant Lewis, Miss Grenada. All clothing line you see here,
Decide to tell me
designed by her for her clients.
that you know about
So if you're visiting Grenada anytime and want to get some fashionable clothes,
you.
check out Tracy Grant Lewis,
To tell me yes.
Miss Grenada.
I know that you know I got to wait. If I gave you protection, would you sleep inside my dome? It's only me and you. We would never be alone. 'Cause anything you require, I'll assist it on my own. I'm a man of my words, baby. Turn our house into a home. If you decide to tell me yes, yes I know that you know what I is. And if you decide to tell me yes, yes I know that you know I got the race. Lord, I ask in my prayer, moments you need. Come and give me your love, girl. I never felt this so sweet. I'm never leaving, I'm staying. I just thought I'd let you know. So come and give me your love, 'cause I'll never let you go. If you decide to tell me yes, yes I know, yes I know that you know I got the best. If you decide to tell me yes, yes I know that you know I got the best. If you decide to tell me yes, yes I know, yes I know that you know I got the rest. If you decide to tell me yes, yes I know that you know I got the
You just say like this, I don't feel nothing. I see world go back, you just afraid of that. Problems every day, you have nothing to say. You rather run and hide before you pay that life. Something you will die for. Your whole life is fun, you never made one time. For something you will die for. People dying every day. So say something you will die for. Something you will die for.
Look at how striking, black your throat, your skin. Before you join the fight, you rather brave your strike. Don't like the condition, so the fighting election. Before you sympathize, you rather brave the side. I can't stand up for something, you will die. Shut down with throat. Why stand up for something, you will die. Going on every day, you have nothing to say. Something for you will die for nothing. Stand up. Stand up. Something for you will die for nothing. You talking the talk, people walking the walk. You happy as ever, you be a fence watcher. Life's a precious thing, but you don't be within. Got up and play your back, and play it from your heart. Get up, my friend. So when I for something, for your grandchildren. What can you stand for something? For you will die for nothing. For something, for you will die for nothing. Parents in the bed sleeping while the children play out on the street line. No is to be blamed for this kind of living. It must be who was doing the teaching. With AIDS on the scene, unemployment rising, yet unwanted pregnancy. So amazing to see at the age of 13, our children making baby. How could a premature lady never make a mature baby? So I'm begging you, Jack, to send down someone to save the world generation. Without any frustration, who is the one responsible for the way how they're living? We're living in a corrupt system. What's the one you accusing? What I want them to know, I want it them so. For sure, what you sow today, that is exactly what you make tomorrow. I want to know what is in your children. Some parents try their best to give their children a good education. because opportunity some of them never had. They providing for their children, but only to find in the end it's embarrassment coming out from them. So you regret all the money you spend for food, house rent, and the utility bills that you pay, plus school books and uniform you buy. And oh God, the price is so high, and some of the children don't have no father, so the problem is for the mother. From drinking rum and smoking marijuana, who is the one responsible for the things that they're smoking? And we're living in a corrupt system. But what's the one you accusing? What I want them to know, I want them so. But what you sow today, that is exactly what I want to know. What is in you? If you want to know how parents living at home, you got to look at their children and the things they do and the way how they speak. You could guess the kind of living. Cause old people always used to say charity begins at home. If your mother cursing the neighbor, you can't dare pass without saying good morning. But the teaching today's not so. And it's bad boys everywhere you go. For sure. The big and the small, they doing the same thing. Computer getting the bad names. That is why they sit in the pocket. Who is the one responsible? For the cooking, the sneaking. We living in a corrupt system. Bunche, what's the one you accusing? What I want them to know, I will not teach them so. But because you so today, that is exactly what I want to know. We're teaching the children. Some parents just feel they could do and say anything in the presence of their children. As soon as the children try to repeat what they say, they demanding respect from them. How many things go on? They're expecting their children now to go and walk to mind them. But if you want your children to have respect for you, you must be a good example. That's something all parents should know. God must bring back an echo. When daddy come drunk, he and mommy start fussing while the children they listening. Especially when they doing the Saturday. You is the one responsible for the way how they living. You are corrupting your children. One day, computer you accusing. I want them to know. I will not teach them so. But they want you so today. That is exactly what I want to know. What is in the children? So respect your children. Leave them alone. Yes, teach them well. Examples. This one is gonna make you. This one. Feel it all like a selfishness. No love for humanity. You know nothing no one else. What you want to do, and you want to do. What you want and politics and said that's no mistake. Some be a silent trouble, no say just in the nation, you will learn mistake. This one is gonna make you sweet. I see others having suffering, fathers having suffering, brothers fighting sisters, my father will be learned. How much more we got to see? There is only time will come when all wickedness must go down. Righteousness must come around. Innocent children making babies, and make them as the respect for the elders. And you make them tell you them a gangster, and the shot will fire. Fire. Someone to pray. This one. Someone pray.
Someone pray.
Well, that's where I put the hammer down and get out of here. Kick the check to the rear. All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. 3 o'clock, 3 p.m. Raphael Paul with Message to the Grassroots will be right here at 3 p.m. His special guest will be Carlos Peso, out of Gov in St. John's. He'll be here this afternoon from 3 p.m. until 4:30 p.m. So please stay tuned and listen to Gem FM. And if you want our merchandise, our hats, our bags, our sneakers, check us out on Shopify at gemfm.ca. All right? Just check it out and, go on yourself account, buy some stuff. You want to get to know more about us, call us and talk to us. We'll be more than happy to share. I can visit our website and you will see a lot of our information there. And any information, anything you want to share with us, please do so by sending us an email and we'll be able to respond to you. Again, we're looking for some sales associates for magazine, Genesis magazine itself, and our radio station. So if you're interested in selling, please visit us and give us a shout out. All right, send us your resume and so on. So we'll be able to get in contact with you and you can share, and we can, link up and have something going in just a matter of weeks or days, to have you working with us and for us doing what we do here, promoting Gem FM. All right, so Genesis Magazine and Gem FM Radio, one big family. Good afternoon, Pastor Daphne Gabriel. Again, don't forget to join Pastor Daphne every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, 10:30 to 11:30 with Community Dateline. All right, ladies and gentlemen, I gotta go kill the chair to the way and get out of here. Have a wonderful afternoon. Stay tuned. Listen to the music on www.gemfm. That's it again. Rachel Charles again. Thank you so much for being here. God bless you and make you a blessing. Back to my roots. Yeah. Wow.